be bringing all of the action, and we'll be on with that very shortly. So I'll run just making sure they get the course dialed on the way out and around the time, ticking on currently 5:20. So it's going to be a straight Laura Stephen, the Everton Cycles race team. And you can...
It's got donkeys here. Didn't change much. Well, the out, but the oven. Yeah, in terms of looking at the body looks very similar. Got a spin on it as well. Yeah, no, I won't go too far that way. Oh, that's good. If she wants to flag it up, she can. If not, it's fine. It's probably a good spot.
So please be aware that you will not be to line the teams coming in and through. So our riders keep on moving through the straight. So no stopping on the straight, guys. You need to keep on going all the way through. No stopping on the straight, guys.
Happened to me once in a cricket Preston Arena, right up at the constant's head.
Yes, I can. I can hear you.
So races, our national championships was started with the Union flag. So riders, you will be stopped when you come to the line this time. Riders, you will be stopped at the line this time. All riders, stop at the line this time. This is the bum fight for position. Now the race will be started with the Union flag. So riders getting the jerseys, riders getting the jackets already shown. This could be an intensive riding. So this is for the National Championship, our race field assembly as they come in and through to the line. Just seen Hannah Barnes on the way over to the line at the moment. Hannah, of course, one of our real fun.
Hi, I'm Matt Barber. Welcome to Lincoln for British Cycling's National Circuit Championships this evening. We're going to start with the women's race. As you can see, 43 riders lined up on the line here in the middle of historic Lincoln. Beautiful evening. The sun is out. It's glowing on the cathedral just over my cameraman's shoulder. Luckily, it's dry as well, because as you can see, quite a cobbled streets here in Lincoln. Quite a technical circuit as well. Let's take a closer look at it now. Really pleased to say I've been joined here in Lincoln, just near the start-finish line, by Dean Downing, former British crit champion himself and a winner of the Lincoln GP here as well. Dean, just tell us about the circuit, because we had a look at it then. Quite technical, pretty cobbled.
Yeah, so we have the finish line, which is the Lincoln Grand Prix course as well, and probably like 200 metres of the same course, and it's slightly uphill, very bad cobbles, and it runs into smoother kind of like clinkers. Hangs a left, as we've just seen there, and it's a bit smoother, a bit more downhill.
Scott down here from the counter.
Left, right, left. It's really very technical, and the girls have been doing about 5 laps recceing, so they're on the line now to get going in a few minutes.
Yeah, the women's race starting very shortly. Both the women's and the men's this evening, an hour and 5 laps long. Who are we going to be taking a look at, Dean, very quickly? Who should we be watching out for tonight?
Well, there's a lot of individual riders in here, and there's some teams. Pro Noctis Red Tully team have got the most riders, so they're a local team as well, based in Lincoln, so they'll be really, really up for it. But then all the teams that were in the Tour Series this year, they're here as well.
Yes.
So all the riders are here. We've got Hannah Barnes there as well. That was a bit of a surprise to see on the start list, but if she goes to the front, you know, she's won the Criterium Championships a long time ago when she was younger. She's now a World Tour rider. She could be a dark horse.
The Barnes sisters, very talented. Alice not in this race, but sure to be trying to defend her title in the road race come Sunday. But back to the here and now. Let's hand over to your commentators for this evening's racing, Hannah Walker and Matt Stevens.
Well, thank you very much indeed. This, of course, is the HSBC UK Women's National Circuit Race Championships. In fact, this is the 23rd edition, and alongside me for our, well, fast and furious spin round the centre of Lincoln in the shadow of the cathedral, round the circumference of the historic Lincoln Castle, will be, of course, Hannah Walker. Hannah, great to have beside you alongside me again.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Very much looking forward to this Circuit Race National Championships. We didn't have a championships last year. We only had the time trial and the road race championships. So the defending champion, Bex Durrell, not on the start line tonight to defend her title. And last time that... the rider that we have in the race who has been on the podium previously in this championships, Joe Tindley, a local rider nowadays. She'll know this circuit very well, lives close by. Also, her team is very local as well, so they have that added extra motivation as well. But as Dean mentioned at the start, Hannah Barnes on the start line, a former winner of the Criterium National Championships 3 times.
Yep, an absolute sensation, as we know, plies her trade for the Canyon SRAM team. Riding primarily on the continent. Good to see her back, and as you said, an interesting one, because we've only got Saturday, and of course Saturday morning is the women's road race. But anyway, the women's road race is yet to come. The time trials are behind us. We'll maybe touch on the time trials that happened yesterday, in fact. So a really closely packed series of events that's taken place for the first time. It's the only time we've had in the history of the British Road Championships, the time trial, the road races and the Criterium Championships all at the same time. But this circuit, well, it's going to be a nervy one, isn't it? We've got a little bit of everything. We've got some little rises, we've got lots and lots of cobbles, clinkers, sleeping policemen as well. It's a primarily left-hand circuit, but intriguingly very, very narrow as well.
It's tight and twisty, this circuit. There's a few technical sections, especially through this finish line. When you look at the overhead view of the course, it looks relatively straightforward, but the racing is going to tell us much differently to that, Matt.
Certainly is. Great views from the Castle Hill pub and around. It's got a real... This, without a shadow of a doubt, is one of the most iconic places for bike racing in the United Kingdom. A blue ribbon classic, of course, the Lincoln Grand Prix. And this is our first glimpse, great shot from the rear of the moto of these opening laps. And I think it's not going to take very long before this field really starts to thin out. And I really hope that these riders have a good warm-up. But this is great. The first proper glimpse of this circuit at speed. Yeah,
onto Westgate now here on this section where this is one of the wider sections. It's best for the riders to move up here. As we just saw how narrow that sector was after the finish line.
Look already how some riders are about 150 metres behind already. If you want to get in with any sort of chance of placing in this crit champs, you have to be at the front. You have to be on the front foot. And this is as you said, it's only about 900 metres round. No straight is any longer than 200 metres. So if you looked at this as a graph in terms of the physical effort, the physical demands on these riders, there's a wet patch just going through that corner. Hope those riders missed that one. It's like just a series of intervals for an hour.
It is. It's very, very difficult, the circuit racing. It's intense. There's no real chance to relax because positioning is key. We're already starting to see a split here within the group, and we're only on lap 1. So that intensity, as you mentioned before, Matt, that is so important to make sure that you're well warmed up. As already 900 metres complete through the finish line for the first time.
Well, I didn't get a clock on that, but roughly we're going to be lapping in about 1 minute and 10 seconds, I think, give or take. So we'll get to you to go analog for a bit, set your phone up, and we'll try and get some times. But as you said, already some splits being forced. Several of the big teams already at the front here on these opening laps. And just in terms of distance, as we have the Prince of Wales pub in the background, another top spot to watch this brilliant race as the sun sets, should I say, on this city of Lincoln. They will be racing, Joe, well, the men actually will be racing in the dark, and I do believe we've actually got some floodlights set up especially for this event, so it's going to have what the French call a nocturne feel to it.
It's going to be a race of two halves, when they're going to be able to see the women's race now, get a feel for it, see how the race unfolds, and just to take a look. And their recon earlier on today will be very, very different to when they race. But Matt, the damage really being done here by Joe Tindley on the front for Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes. As I mentioned before, the local rider who has been a silver medalist in the National Criterium Championships previously in 2018 when we were up north.
Well, she's looking very, very good. She took one of those corners at real speed. She clearly knows this circuit very, very well indeed. It's opened up a small gap, but the chase is on already. I can see some riders getting lapped very, very quickly on this field, and it's worth doing a little bit of housekeeping at the top of the show. Quite often in some criteriums, if you have a mechanical or a puncture, you're allowed to lap out, but here you are not. And Tindley absolutely flying around this circuit, and those cobbles are slightly uphill. And as Dean Downing said at the top of the programme, they're not easy at all. It's really, really quite difficult to keep that even application of power. Yeah,
very difficult indeed, and especially to put your effort out evenly on the cobbles. It's that ever-changing feel from the cobble sectors to the smooth tarmac sectors. As you say, picking your line appropriately and correctly as well, so important. We've got a few sweeping left-hand bends, but there's a couple of tight bends, tight left-handers where could really catch you out.
Great shot there, Tindley just rounding that corner. And I think she's got the crowd behind her as well. She keeps just glancing over her shoulder, but I tell you what, she's opening up a gap pretty quickly. There's several what we call sleeping policemen on this circuit as well, several speed bumps. Now they're just heading back down to Drury Lane, and they'll be swinging left again and back into the Castle Square to that finish line. So these laps coming very, very quickly indeed. And just look, already about 250 metres between the front of the race and the back. She's absolutely flying in these very early stages of this race.
Yeah, incredible stuff for Joe Tindley. I know this is a race that she's wanted to win for a very, very long time. She's trying to target it over the years. As I said before, silver medalist. She came close when Anna Henderson took the victory. But for Joe, this is a huge target for her.
Well, straight round that corner, that's a little chicane. I mean, you can just see there's not much sight. I mean, when we come into the finish, should we have a small group, the place to lead this one is from the front, even from like 150, 200 metres out, because you can pick your own racing line, and regardless of your ability to have a kick or a sprint, there's only a limited amount of road, isn't there? So if you're in the lead and have got a good bit of momentum, you're in the very, very good chance indeed.
You certainly are, and I think you just have to commit and go with your effort and have the confidence in yourself, because it's going to be incredibly difficult to try and move up into that final few hundred metres. And I think on this course, now we've seen a few laps of it, you get a feel and a sense of what it's like. You can be out of sight, out of mind as well, because of the twisty, turny nature of the circuit. This is on Westgate, the only real opportunity for the chasing riders behind to have that impetus to chase down.
Well, Westgate, as you said, look at the gaps opening up here, straight into Union Street now, and very, very quickly indeed there'll be another left turn on this anti-clockwise circuit around the back of the castle into Drury Lane. Wow, I'm sat down. And I'm getting dizzy on this this circuit. It really is a pretty stressful one. Still riders coming round the top corner. A real selection has been made early on in this race. You could just see another one of the pre-race favourites, Abby Smith there from Tipco Silicon Valley, also in that front group. But the gap's kind of stabilising now. This is a bold move. A
very bold move, and to go so early in the race, knowing that this is your target, knowing that the course suits you well, and we stop the clock there going across that finish line, roughly lapping at around 1 minute and 35 here on the circuit. She's maintaining the gap well to the chasing group. We have one rider from Team Breeze who's committing to try and chase down Jo Tindley here.
Well, she's lapped one rider already. We'll be lapping one rider in a few seconds' time. Once riders are lapped, they are eliminated, so it didn't take very long. Well, one lap from, she's only done about 3 or 4 laps already. I'm losing count because we're lapping so quickly, but this is a phenomenally strong performance, a very, very confident one. Now, Hannah, she's constantly looking around. Do you think that she's happy with this position because that group is starting to slow down, or do you think she should continue with this effort and just see if any individuals get across to her?
For me, I think Jo Tindley, she should continue this effort, and then hopefully a small group will come across to her. And if you have that split in the peloton and in the chasing group, it will benefit Jo if they can jump across to her. At the moment, the rider on the front doing the chasing is Abby Smith of the Team Tipco Silicon Valley Bank in that blue jersey with the fluorescent bike. So she's just a rider who has just signed for Team Tipco Silicon Valley Bank, a professional women's team. She's been on incredible form, and you're just starting to see a select group of riders just opening up the gap there.
I think another rider in the mix there from that very distinctive kit with the gold flashes. Dame Sarah Story's team, of course, Story Racing, looked like Lucy Gadd also in the mix as well in 3rd position. But this is a phenomenal bit of bike riding. She went from the gun. That rider has been lapped. Just look at the way she kind of takes that racing line around that corner. And I'm going to say it again, this particular section doesn't look hard, but having raced it in the Lincoln Grand Prix many times, this for me was one of the hardest bits of the circuit.
And deceptively uphill as well. That slight rise really puts the pain into the legs, doesn't it? And when you're already on the limit, you are you know, it's so intense, these criterion races, and as we know from the Lincoln Grand Prix, it is such a hard section with those cobbles. She just takes a look around, starting to feel now that her gap is starting to diminish. Yeah, I think she knows that she's probably going to be caught, and some sort of selection has already made. Hannah Barnes also in that group on the left-hand side as well. So this group, I think she's done the right thing. Pretty happy, quite clearly, to commit early on to make sure she's in the right place before the race comes back together again. Around 7 riders, then we have that small gap to this larger group here. So all about to come back together. But she's going to persist with this effort. I think she's seen this slight lull in that chase, and she's just accelerated again. Lucy Gadd doing the chasing there for Story Racing in the red helmet with the red and blue sleeves on her jersey.
And she's got several teammates, hasn't she, as well? Jo Tindley's out in front. There's a couple of her riders, but it could be Charlotte Berry, in fact, who's just starting to do a little bit of blocking, just to try and deter the chase. As a rider from Story Racing, Gadd gets on the front again to try and bring back this gap. It started ebbing and flowing as we head back very quickly into this little chicane. There we go, a little left, a little right, shall I say, and then a left again. I think this is another rider who's just been lapped. Gadd doing a lot of work on the front here. And just see Hannah Barnes just towards the back of this group in that multicoloured kit of hers.
Almost floating, the style of Hannah Barnes. It's so relaxed. It almost looks, you know, she's just able to finesse on the bike. She's able to follow and float those wheels, just follow the moves. And she started towards the back of the grid, so just to be able to make her way through the group like that.
Yeah, she does make it look very easy, and the gap has opened again. Well, this is she's continuing, should I say, with the effort, making sure she's keeping hydrated on this very technically demanding circuit. Well, Gadd's having a look round, and she's got a teammate of our race leader just behind her, so she's not going to get any assistance. So from a team perspective, the Pro Noxus Red Hill Bikes team are doing a very good job indeed of allowing this lead rider their headway on, of course, as you said, home soil. And there's always a great atmosphere at the Lincoln Grand Prix. It's great that we've got the crit champs after a year's absence. So of course we've got our road champions and our crit champs who spent 2 years in that rather lovely jersey.
We have, and it's always just such a fantastic atmosphere here in Lincoln. The crowds really get behind the riders. It's tremendous, and it was always a crowd favourite. It was always a rider favourite to be racing here in Lincoln, and I think that also spurs you on. Despite Jo being a local rider, she recently moved into the area a couple of years ago. You have that. When you have the crowd behind you, it spurs you on, doesn't it? And it just gives you that motivation.
It certainly does, but she's not only strong, but you see the way she just flicks the bike around these corners. She's got those lines absolutely dull. There's no waste at all. Carrying that momentum, never braking unless she really needs to. She knows, well, she handles the bike beautifully. She's strong, she's aero, and she's holding that gap. And it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility. We've seen it sometimes in the past on these short technical circuits for a lone rider to lap the field. I mean, it's very early days, but that wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility at all.
It's certainly not, and we've seen it in both men's and women's racing that a leader or a small group has been able to lap the whole field. So for Jo Tindley, she's just keeping settling into her tempo. As you say, every corner she has dialed.
Look at this, she's got, well, that's about 150 metre gap, and they spread all across her. Look at that, great riding by her teammates. Nobody willing to do any of the chasing at all. This is fascinating stuff. Couple from dames from Team Story Racing in there. Tidco Silicon Valley represented, I think both the riders. Hannah Barnes just sat again in the middle of that group, but no real organised, concerted chase, and it's been left again to Lucy Gadd to do the chasing.
When you have the disruption in that chasing group, it only benefits Tindley, who's out front here in the red jersey. That Lucy Gadd, she has no one who's fully committed to help her with that chase, and she doesn't want to do the whole chase and drag the whole group along with her.
Here's that little chicane again. Again, just gets that perfect racing line, carrying that speed. Again, this section here, the road ever so slightly just starts to rise, and this, I think, will be the hardest part on the circuit, maintaining that momentum. When you start to tire, that's where you'll start to lose a lot of pace, lose the control on the bike, lose that traction, as we see a different rider now just moving to the front and some more gaps starting to open up.
Around 22 seconds the lead for Jo Tindley now. That's Jenny Hall of Techers, who's now started to help with Lucy Gadd in the chase. Jenny Hall, a rider who went to the Tokyo Paralympics as a pilot on the tandem on the front for Sophie Unwin. So great to see her back racing so soon after the games, carrying that form as well.
I'll tell you what, who is carrying form. Look at that daylight. That's around a third of the circuit that our race leader has the lead. You see the flick of the elbow there from Jenny Hull in that rather fetching Techers kit. They are a very unique team. They cover all disciplines of racing. As we see one rider pull out, that's Francesca Hall of Loughborough Lightning TRG, one of the many riders, in fact, Hannah, that have been lapped today, which is no surprise on such a short circuit like this. But so far, this is a quite astonishing, bold move by our race leader.
We've seen it more and more, haven't we, in road racing, especially in the pro racing for men and women, where it's not unlikely that an early breakaway, an early attack can stay away until the finish line. And I think having that break because of the pandemic, riders have had a concerted amount of time to rest and recover and really focus on their strengths, their weaknesses, but also give the body time to recover from years and years of racing. And I think when you come back to it and not having a Criterium Championships for over 2 years now, Tindley, she just wants to go out there, give it her all, and she's at the moment doing an incredible job. She
is. She's what I'd like to say, expressing herself and doing it very, very well indeed. She's clearly enjoying it on home turf, as it were, home cobbles. And it is an absolutely beautiful city. If you've never visited Lincoln, please do. Loads of lovely hostelries, bed and breakfast, hotels, and of course the Lincoln Cathedral, built back in 1185. Gothic in architecture, 83 metres high, one of the tallest cathedrals in the country. And of course home to Lincoln Castle as well, built by none other than William the Conqueror. I think he was a very nice chap back in the 11th century. So steeped in history, great views of Lincolnshire, and it's quite, I mean, it sits on the top of this hill because Lincolnshire is essentially pretty flat and just gently rolling, and Lincoln, you can see it for miles and miles. It's a really iconic, beautiful city, isn't it?
It really stands out, doesn't it? And you can see the cathedral and then the castle and the walls for such a long way out, but it's such a wonderful place to come to.
Another nice shot here. This is a really, really good shot of this little chicane before the run-in. Just look how late the line comes. It's, I'm sure when we have the road races on Sunday, the race will be split up. Normally, it's pretty easy to pick a winner. There's never, I don't think, been any photo finishes at the Lincoln Grand Prix, but this is that nasty little drag. In the road races, this is generally just on the left here is where we'll have the feed zone, and the road race will actually go straight on at this point as Joe Tindley just swings to the left and laps a few more riders. And the chase has begun in earnest now. We saw Hannah Barnes chasing a little bit earlier on, and I think that was actually Abby Smith doing a little bit of riding for Tibco at Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah, riders starting to feel the danger of Tindley's move now, and now we're seeing more and more riders want to try and contribute to the pace, but there's no real cohesion in that group of 3 or 4 riders who want to share that workload. It kind of comes sporadically. Barnes is doing a turn, then the lull happens, then Smith begins to ride, then you have a lull again, and Gadd, who'd done an awful lot of work early on, at the moment just sitting back in the wheels.
Yep, another little acting, using her arms as little shock absorbers on that particular back stretch there. And that's Union Street. We're heading back into Drury Lane now before the finish. That's actually one of the only downhill parts of the circuit. We're ever so gently as we head up here, going uphill through the chicane again. Now just to the right there, that is the Michaelgate. That is the climb that we'll be seeing over the next on Sunday for the men's and women's road races. But thank goodness for these crit riders today, they're not going to have to climb the Michaelgate as another lap is done. Remember, no set laps in this race. It's just 1 hour in time and then 5 laps to finish. So Joe Tindley opening up this lead. We have to set the clock, I think, a little bit. I think you've got it running. Thank you. You read my mind there, Hannah. So we'll try and get the clock as things just ease a little bit. There's around 15 riders left in this front group and the clock ticking. What are we looking at the moment, Hannah?
We're looking at already over 26 seconds for Joe Tindley, so they've crossed the line. 29 seconds is the gap between Joe Tindley of Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes and that chasing group led by Hannah Barnes, Abby Smith across the line that time.
Well, we're getting the time of 23 seconds there. That's give or take. We think it's actually a little bit more than that, but quite often our time checks are a little bit delayed, but certainly a very, very healthy one indeed, which equates to around a third of the circuit. So these finishing straights, she will be the old cycle commentator's cliche. She's certainly out of sight and out of mind. And once you do get a rider, I know it's an old hackneyed kind of comment, but once they're out of sight, I mean, it does make a massive psychological difference not to have the rider in front of you acting as essentially a carbon and flesh carrot.
It certainly is. It makes a huge difference from that chasing group, because you start to get demoralised. Riders are looking round to, they want some assistance from other riders in that chasing group. So Barnes doing the work at the moment for Canyon SRAM. She's the sole representative in this race from the World Tour women's team. Sister Alice not taken to the start this evening as Tindley goes through the start finish for another lap.
Well, Anna's just set the clock again. You can just see now, I think that we're seeing although Tindley is riding very, very strongly, we're getting the first glimpses of maybe a little bit of fatigue starting to set in just after the chicane on that little gentle rise, heavily cobbled, really nasty cobbles before moving on to the clinkers. And this is a good move here. Big, big move by Abby Smith, who's been doing a lot of work on the front, but she has tried to go clear, but she's the type of rider that she rides very, very well on cobbles, really well poised on the bike, rolling a big gear.
Yeah, she's been in incredible form recently. Only 19 years of age. She was on the British Cycling Academy. Now been signed by Team Tibco Silicon Valley Bank. Just come off the back of an incredible week at the women's tour last week. So for her, that form is good. She's been showing a lot of signs of promise as the gap now 24 seconds after that chase from Abby Smith. So coming down ever so slightly, but for Tindley, she can just settle into her rhythm, into her effort.
Well, she's around 20 minutes into the race, so we've still got another at least 45 minutes of racing still to come. And when you add on those 5 laps, which we're taking at about 1 minute and 30 seconds, give or take. So still a lot of racing still to go on a very, very attritional circuit. Now that little move by Smith, that little attack has been brought back. Well, not quite. Hannah Barnes is just a couple of lengths off, but that extra acceleration for those riders with a lot of international experience has fractured that group behind, reducing it even further as another lap is done to a very appreciative crowd. The sun slowly starts to set, and look at this, Hannah Barnes dragging a group of 8 or 9 riders, including at least one teammate of our front runner out in front there.
The team have done a great job, haven't they, just to patrol that front group, make sure that no one else is able to get away, just to keep an eye on things. And at the moment, we've got a real select group. There's Josie Nelson of the Team Coupe High Tech Products team, a rider who's had this year a real standout year, racing for a club team out in Belgium, and then was signed by the UCI Continental team.
Yeah, she's had several wins in some of the commissars over there, hasn't she? She's been a very late season team change, wasn't it, for her, showing a lot of potential. Another rider I did notice for Team Breeze in that red kit, riding about 4th or 5th wheel, was Eleanor King, number 46, another one of the pre-race favourites, I think. So a lot of the riders that we thought would be at or near the head of affairs are indeed in this front group. As you can see, 2 riders from Story Racing also in there. Hannah Barnes has just done a long turn on the front, swings off and allows, that is Lucy Gadd to go through yet again, who's done a lot of work today.
She's done a tremendous amount of work. She does have a teammate in there with her as well. That's Beth Morrow, who was second at the Ilkley GP a few months ago. But with that lull in that chasing group, that's given the opportunity for 2 more teammates of Tindley's to get back into contact. So now they're getting into such a strong position. They'll have 3 riders in that chasing group, again, just to disrupt the chase.
It's very easy, isn't it? They don't actually need to block as such. They get on the front and put the brakes on. It's not like that. They just need to get in the line. And if anybody, and just deter anybody from coming through, it's a real easy way to kind of, as you say, vex everybody else, slow down that chase, and just allow that lead to slowly but surely grow. There's Gadd again. She's really determined to try and bring this back. Hasn't got any real assistance at the moment. And that group is now about 12 riders strong. The rider just at the back, just about holding on to the wheel, was a teammate of our race leader. That was Charlotte Berry holding on to the back. So the sun continues to set. It's about, I wouldn't say a balmy 12 degrees, actually quite a chilly 12 degrees. Probably going to go down, and we know this time of year, once we start to lose the light, it's going to be pretty chilly. We saw many of the riders warming up in puffer jackets, keeping themselves nice and warm. But one thing is for certain, everybody will be pretty warm and up to speed. But such a determined. I'm wondering if this was what her plan was straight off the bat, was just to go for broke and just go straight away, because she has ripped this field apart.
It was almost taking everyone by surprise, wasn't it, that no one jumped or reacted immediately to Tindley's move. So for her, it worked out perfectly. We had Lucy Gadd on the front trying to do a lot of work to try and bring her back. And at one point, it was looking like everything was going to come back together. She'd taken her foot off the gas for momentarily, and then seen there was a lull in that chasing gap, and she's gone again. So she had that second wind of effort to gain, increase that time gap, increase the effort. And now, as we're into and approaching around 25 minutes of racing, give or take, we're starting to see a little bit more impetus. Here's Eleanor King of Team Breeze in the red jersey, just doing the work. That's from the under-23 British Women's Academy team.
Yeah, she was one of the riders that is really tipped for a big future, taking her turn on the front. But just looking at the shape of this group, although she's putting in a pretty strong turn, it's not quite stringing the group out in the fashion that we saw Hannah Barnes do earlier on. So great shot of our race leader. What a ride by the local hero, Jo Tindley here. And she looks composed, just looking at her body language there, the way she looks focused, just by her facial expression. Although some riders wear a little bit of a mask, she looks to me to be in complete and utter control. No real upper body movement at all. She looks really calm and totally dialed. And
so much experience under her belt as well, Tindley, a rider who went to the Youth Commonwealth Games over in Australia. She's been on the British programme on the talent team when she was a youth. She had a few years out of the sport in her early 20s and came back, and she's been a rider who's really excelled and thrived in the criterium scene as well as the road racing scene. But you know, the criteriums, the Tour Series, the Circuit Series, this is really her bread and butter.
So 27 seconds. That is a bang up to date time check. So just under half a minute. So we're coming in to look at the beautiful light in there. Lincoln Cathedral looks absolutely stunning on this autumnal day in October. A return of the National Criterium Championships, or their Circuit Race Championships as it is now known. It used to be called the Crit Champs, and of course Great Britain, famed globally for its city centre cycling scene, started off in the 1980s with the Kellogg's City Centre Series, and then it's just grown and grown and grown. And we had the first edition of the Elite Women's Championships back in 1998, with only one absence, and that was of course for reasons we all know. And this is the 23rd edition, and it's been fought out in a quite spectacular location. Bells ringing, has a bit of a feel of Belgium about it with the cobbles and the bells, doesn't it? All we need is a couple of fruit stands.
Certainly does, and some beverages would be...
I think there's plenty of beverages going on tonight in Lincoln, I can tell you. It's a Friday night, the pubs are open, there'll be plenty of beverages being downed, I can tell you that. And maybe one or two for Jo if she can stay away today, but still a lot of racing. You can just see several... I mean, we've got to take our hats off to the organisers for pulling this race together. Completely closed off the city centre. We had the time trials over in Tindley yesterday, which were a massive success. So we do have to doff our cap to British Cycling and, of course, the local council here and the organisers for pulling this off at a relatively short notice. It's always a successful event, and wonderful to have the British Championships back after that absence.
And loving having the Criterium Championships on the same week of the Circuit Championships, on the same week of as the time trial and the
I don't know if the riders would I don't know if the riders would agree, but hey, we've got it. It's quite a compacted series of events, but it's the same for everybody. Riders can pick and choose, can't they, which they want to ride. Of course, 10 iconic jerseys up for grabs over the last few days. A couple more on Sunday, of course. Couple today, and then we've had the time trials for the under-23s as well. But what a ride this is by Jo Tindley, applauding as she just moves on to these flatter paving stones. So many different changes of surface today on this anti-clockwise circuit, but this is one heck of a performance. She pretty much went away straight from the gun. If any of you are joining us, out in front is Jo Tindley, a former silver medalist in this championships back in 2018. She finished in front of Jessica Roberts and behind Anna Henderson. Anna Henderson, by the way, won the individual time trial championships yesterday, of course riding for Jumbo-Visma. So as Hannah was quite eloquently describing earlier on, Jo Tindley, a rider of real class. But this has to be, if she was going to pull this off, this would be the performance of her career so far. But still, a lot of racing. 34 seconds isn't a lot when we've still got well over half an hour of racing still to go. And
anything could happen, couldn't it? You know, don't want to do the curse or anything, but anything could happen as soon as we see some injection of pace, for instance, from that chasing group behind, and you start to have an organised chase, and the speed, that acceleration, the explosive attacks start to come. They could soon take out the time of Jo Tindley, and that fatigue towards the back end of the race, it'll start to set into the legs of Tindley.
Look at that, her teammate just moving to the front there. It was a great bit of riding that. She looked around, looked for anybody who was going to do the chasing, thought, well, I can take this corner, drift into the corner, shave off a little bit more speed, offering up another couple of seconds to her teammate out in front. So as well as doing a great individual ride, her teammates behind are doing a really professional, superb job about limiting any kind of acceleration to behind as best they can without kind of illegally interfering in the racing.
It's so important, isn't it, as a teammate, that you work to the team strategy and the team plan, and the team manager and sports director Rick Lister, he knows that, and throughout the whole year he's had a real solid plan for all of his riders of how they should and how they can ride these criteriums, how they can ride the road races, and Corin's side has been doing a tremendous job of that all season, that she's been a real loyal teammate, a loyal domestique, could we say, throughout the year.
Well, it is Jenny Holt on the front from the Techers CC. Doing a good job stringing this out, making a few riders just suffer at the back there. She's taken a few big turns on the front, but what I've noticed so far about the race, and I'm sure you'll agree, is that we haven't really seen the teams get together. There's nobody that really seems to have had a conversation and said, look, if we work together as a collective, we might have a chance here. So all we're getting is this staccato style of chasing, surging on the front that makes everybody suffer, and then it eases off and they spread across the road. And this is all playing into the hands of Jo Tindley.
Every time they make a surge in effort and acceleration, a little attack, when it comes back and you have that lull, it only plays into the hands of Jo Tindley, that she's able to keep a steady effort. You can just see some time gaps being given to her there at the side of the road, so she's got support all the way around, having those little nuggets of information given to her. But for Tindley, who's able just to maintain this effort, it works into her hands that she doesn't have to react to these huge, intense accelerations.
Exactly. I mean, obviously she's having to ride into the wind. There's no shelter from anybody else, but there's a real purity of effort. She knows the kind of effort, given her experience, that she's got to maintain. I don't know if she'll be riding necessarily to power or anything like that, but she just looks completely in control. And although it's arguably harder out in front, there is a purity, a simplicity to riding on your own and riding just at threshold, regardless of what the terrain throws at you. There is a linear nature to being alone out in front, isn't there?
Being able to take your own line as well in the corners and on these technical sections, and even at the bottom of Union Road on that downhill, being able to carry as much speed as you possibly can into Drury Lane, that you don't have to almost touch the brakes. You have no one else around you. You're not having to worry about, are you going to have a rider counter-attack you? Are they going to want to try and split things up? So for her, she only has to think about her own effort, her own line, how fast she wants to take the corners at. And having been from round here, living round here, she's had that opportunity to perhaps come and do some recons and take a look at the force beforehand.
Yeah, and just the way she's clearly got all the lines on these corners, Dale. Just see how early she starts to pedal out of the corner. I mean, every single moment where there's a place to get that little bit of extra speed, get the power on the pedals as soon as possible, she's doing it. But also, she should be getting some time checks as well, so she'll know how much she's got in hand. She'll know at the points on the circuit where she can afford just to knock it off a little bit, that little breath, 1 or 2 seconds in a corner when you can freewheel around, all these little moments of a recovery. Because when you are on your own, that's what you do kind of need to maximise the moments, or the little opportunities to get a bit of a break as well.
You certainly do, and to make sure that you are getting enough out of your effort, but also not going too deep into that red zone too early, because you really start to suffer then.
Well, it's the group behind. It's swelled, actually. That little easing, we had around just 9 or 10 riders in the chasing group, but since their pace has been knocked off a little bit, it has swelled. And as we've seen before, I think this is a rider from Team Breeze on the front again. I think it's Eleanor King riding hard on the front, trying to do a little bit of damage, try and eat into this 37-second lead was the last time check. And she's at least 2 of these corners in front. So she's just heading down. Again, if my local geography is correct, it's Union Street at the moment, and left into Drury Lane, which takes us back into Castle Square. And we should pan back in a minute and see exactly how far the group are behind. So this is one of those moments, Hannah, where it's a little bit of a rest. But just watch how early in the corner, even on the apex of the corner, she's back on the power again, just maximising that speed.
It's so impressive to see, and to see how in control she is and how confident she is in herself, to be able to attack so early on in the race. It's a race that she's wanted to have. It's a title that she's wanted to have on her palmares and in her trophy cabinet for a long time, and it's always eluded her as of yet. She has that silver medal, but here she's just come in and knows that she wants to try and take this national title home with her tonight, as the gap roughly sitting around 35 seconds. So she's lost a couple of seconds, but she's maintaining very well. Yeah,
she's certainly not capitulating at all, and what we will get is this fluctuation in the gap. She'll be at a constant. I don't know if she certainly won't. It is a sort of a time trial, but whether she fades towards the end, that is quite possible. But when you get a rider surging on the front who's been sitting in the wheels, you will get the lead tumbling by a handful of seconds before then going out again. It's a really strange sort of pattern as Hannah Barnes hits the front. Still looking very relaxed, isn't she, on the top set there through the Market Square on those really heavy cobbles. Again, taking that quick racing line before moving left again. And a reminder, that is the hardest bit of the circuit. Another rider on their back, that was Charlotte Berry, teammate of Jo Tindley. Also in the mix is Isabel Darwell as well, so she's got at least 2 teammates in that chase group behind.
Isabel Darville, another local rider from Lincolnshire as well. So for Isabel Darville, she has learnt so much from being on the team with Tindley, from all her experience. Tindley, now 34 years of age, has been in the sport for over 20 years, knows so much, and to be able to pass on her knowledge and experience to some of the younger riders who are up and coming within her team, it's incredible to see, and it's really playing dividends now as you see the amount of riders in this chasing group from the team of Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes. 4 riders in there who are the teammates of Joe Tindley. So for them, they're in such a strong position. I think only Story Racing are the other team who have strength in numbers. They have the 2 riders there with Beth Morrow and Lucy Gadd in this chasing group.
Yeah, you're right. Another rider that was just spotted there is Amy Gornall from the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes as well. So they do have numbers, but another big acceleration on at the front now by Gadd. She's been doing a lot of work, but interesting, she tried to attack once, and that's the thing, I call it puzzling, but it appears that riders are more than happy just to drive hard on the front rather than to attack and try and bridge across, or at least force another split. Because if we do get a split of 2 or 3 riders, strong riders, that could be the best hope to try and bridge this gap and stop the might of Joe Tindley, because at the moment she's running away with this.
She certainly is, and I think that could be the catalyst that stops Tindley from going on to take the title tonight in Lincoln. But as you say, Gadd makes an attack, but because you've had that lull, riders have had that chance and that opportunity to recover, to bring that heart rate down, just to compose themselves again. They're able to react immediately to any move, any attack that is going. And Barnes again coming to the front for Canyon SRAM in almost that galactic jersey, the former British Criterium champion in the past, the only rider to have won it 3 times in the history of the circuit championships.
Yeah, and she won it from a relatively tender age, back in 2010, 2011 and 2013, and she's still a young woman as well, so she was a prodigiously talented, still is, but we have a slightly older, more experienced rider that has a very, very healthy lead indeed. It is Joe Tindley from the local team. Imagine if she were to pull this off. Her first national criterium title, a circuit race title on home soil, racing on the streets of Lincoln to a national title doesn't happen very often. It seems that the team, Joe Tindley in particular, have turned up to this race totally prepared. She's out in front. She's got 4 teammates in this chase group behind. I'm not saying it's quite checkmate, but they have a big advantage at the moment, don't they? It's
not just Tindley who has to come to this championships in good form. It has to be the whole team. They have to come in here with superb form to be able to be in this position to control the race and have it all under control. As Barnes leads through the finish line there, 36 seconds. So Tindley maintaining this gap, no matter how many attacks or accelerations we are seeing from that chasing group. She's just able to concentrate on her effort and maintain.
Yeah, she certainly is. Flies around that corner, just over these little cobbled sections, which really kind of make this, really break the rhythm of this circuit. I used to hate going over Sleeping Pleasant, but now there's a lot more road furniture in these city centres, but given that those are cobbled ones, I think they've been there for a very, very long time. So she's nearly 2 straight in front. I think the gap has come down just a couple of seconds. Another big turn on the front by Hannah Barnes. And look at the difference in the shape of this group when Hannah Barnes gets to the front. She does make a big, big difference. She's so, so strong, but makes it, again, look so, so easy.
It looks like she's almost putting out no effort, no power or speed whatsoever, but as soon as she comes to the front, she eats a couple of seconds into the lead of Joe Tindley. Such a fluid, floating pedalling style.
We've just put a couple of riders out the back with that acceleration. And again, great bike handler is Hannah Barnes. Really good all-rounder. She can climb well. She's very, very fast at the finish. She knows how to win a crit. She just drifts over to the side of the road, a nonchalant glance behind to see if anybody wants to give an assistance. And we've got an attack on the right-hand side, which is immediately marked by, I think it's Isabel Darville of the Pro Noctis team. The teammate, of course, the rider going clear is actually Josie Nelson of Team Co-op High-Tech Products, the newly signed rider who's in great form and we know loves the cobbles.
She certainly does. She certainly does. And a rider who has had numerous victories out in Belgium in the Kermesses. She was spotted by the team of High-Tech Products, a team that has been around for a long, long time. Carl Lima, the manager there, noticed her talent, and she's only young as well, is Josie Nelson.
What impressed me as well was the immediate response by one of Joe Tindley's teammates. That was very, very good indeed. She didn't hesitate at all, straight on it. Look, Barnes is coming across. This could change the shape of the race here. Of course, the acceleration there by the rider on the right-hand side. Well, she won't get any assistance. In fact, I think it is Darville. Just make sure of who that is just going around. I think it's I think it's Corinne Side actually, who's that rider there with the long ponytail. She's doing a great job at blocking, but straight over the top when everybody's on the limit is Hannah Barnes.
And just take a look at that, straight out that corner. Sides was on the move of Josie Nelson, and as those two riders started to look at each other, a little acceleration from Hannah Barnes, just opening up a gap there. So as soon as those few cluster of riders in that chasing group make a move, it really splits things up from the back.
Now, great move that was by Nelson. And again, that first move, we've had 3 attacks in just one singular lap, and that has thinned this group out again, as we've got another big move on the front from Abby Smith. Abby Smith, again, one of the riders eager to try and shake things up, and it's a good time to go. Once you've had several attacks, it almost provides the catalyst as well, and you know several riders are going to be really on the back foot having to try and recover. So if you've got good legs, that's often the time to go, isn't it?
And it's only a matter of time, isn't it, before that elastic snaps, before a rider who's in the wheels, who's starting to suffer, they've gone into that red zone. The heart rate is so high, the intensity is high, before they start to lose the wheels in front, and that's when we start to see those splits opening up, and we start to see another reduced chasing group.
So we've got about 41 minutes of race time done. Abby Smith is on the front again, another little split in this group. She's got the teammate of Joe Tindley on her wheel, and that's Corinne Side, who's been very, very active in trying to counter these moves. I mean, every single counter-attack that's gone, she's obviously on a very, very good day. She's managed to get on the wheel of and actually try to slow things down in the corner. So wonderful team riding. But what can you say about Joe Hindley? 42 minutes of racing. Remember, we still have 18 minutes more of racing to go before we commence 5 laps. So it's an hour and 5 laps, and they've roughly been lapping at about 1:23, haven't they?
I'm just starting to see the change in light as well, starting to go a little bit dusky. We're starting to see that the sun is going down, sun is starting to set. When we started, there was a clear visibility. Just starting to see the dust coming in, the lights starting to come on as well, the floodlights.
This gap is starting to close now. This gap is definitely starting to come down, and that big move on the front from Abby Smith. You could see the sprocket that Joe Tindley was riding and right up the blocks, 18 seconds now, so the lead has essentially been halved, and she does, well, visibly seem to be moving just a little bit slower. She's got a kind of higher cadence. She's only able to put push a slightly lower gear. She still seems really composed. I think, although she's clearly tired a little bit, it's more the big accelerations and that series over 2 laps of really stinging, sharp attacks. And
also you're starting to see her body language as well. The hips are starting to rock and roll, showing that fatigue is starting to sit into to Tindley, but it's no surprise. She's been away for almost 40 minutes at the moment, and that gap, 19 seconds now. So around 18 seconds has been taken out of the lead of Joe Tindley in just a couple of laps.
Yeah, well, despite this quite amazing ride, she is going to start feeling this pain. She really, really is. Still a good 25-27 minutes of racing still to go, and that is a relatively slender lead now. And as you said, a top half of her body in comparison to the opening sort of quarter of an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour even, she is starting to rock and roll a little bit, but there's no surprise. This has been a almost superhuman effort. The flashlights, as you said, punctuating this darkened light now. The floodlights that we've got all around the circuit, adding that little bit of atmosphere and more pressure being applied on the front of this select group of riders. Abby Smith determined to narrow this gap.
She knows that she needs to take it up upon herself if she wants to be in a shout of taking the national title tonight, that she can't wait for any other rider in this chasing group to do the work or assist with the work at the moment.
Another rider just in that little select group, about 9 riders. The left was Beth Morrow from Story Racing. The Story Racing team managing to pack a few riders at the sharp end of this race. And we'll try and set the clock next time through for you. These laps moving very, very quickly. We're now 44 minutes of racing, and for the first time in a long time, they had her briefly, even though just for a split second, in the same straight. But look, it's only Abby Smith on the front. Quite clearly, the accumulation of all of those efforts, those attacks, have started to tire the group behind as well.
And no one wanting to assist with the chase with Abby Smith. At the moment, she's that sole rider who, at the moment, she has that impetus. She wants to try and bring back our sole leader, Joe Tindley, and she's not having any help at all. We have Corin Side, who is doing a tremendous team job of patrolling the front and just disrupting that chase. And again, we saw it earlier on, didn't we, that you have that lull. It means that it plays into the hands of Joe Tindley. She's able to gain more time. Her lead extends. And Abby Smith, again from Team Tibco Silicon Valley Bank in that dark blue jersey, wants to try and take it up on the front. She's looking around. She wants some assistance. She wants some help.
She's attacking, always attacking from the front. I mean, she's really showing her hand, isn't she? Showing how strong she is. And what you do when you attack like that, nobody wants to ride with you. So you'll get, again, use that word, this staccato style of racing that basically ebbs and flows. You get this really high pace, it drops down again. But quite clearly, everybody in this race now, and the riders that are left, really starting to suffer. And you can see it writ large on the face of Joe Tindley. The light continuing to fade, adding, I think, to the real drama. Almost a lovely cinematic feel about this circuit here. There, it's gone up again, so she's stolen back or taken back, should I say, another 3 seconds. And there we go. Last time through, they'd come into, so yeah, just about 2 or 3 seconds. Look at this drifting all across the road again. So it's become very tactical behind now.
Hugely tactical, and there's no riders from the sole representative teams, the likes of Barnes or Nelson, or even from Story. They're not talking to each other to say to each other, let's try and assist, let's help each other, let's try and chase back Joe Tindley. It's all the individual efforts that are being made at the moment. And another thing to note, as the sun goes down, it begins to get a little bit more dark, is the choice of glasses that you want to wear, the lenses as well. And you see from Joe Tindley that she's opted for not glasses that would be for they help with brightening things up when it starts to go darker. So it's so important to add all these little
all the small details. Exactly.
All the small details.
No, she's clearly thought this through. They knew that they'll be racing into the early evening. But another big acceleration here. The Story Racing team are riding very well. Linda King now drives on to the front. She's got two teammates from Story Racing in that group in the form of Beth Morrow and Lucy Gadd. Both of those have also been active. This is just now an individual time trial. She can only do one thing, and that's ride as hard as she can. She cannot have any influence on what happens behind. She's just got to keep that gap open. About to lap another clutch of riders. This field from very, very, very early on was being torn to shreds. But a select group of, I would say, about 12 or 13 riders in this group now.
Seeing another large group of riders who've been distanced and Tindley about to lap them, it almost plays into her hands again, doesn't it? Giving that extra motivation, just showing what kind of effort you've been doing, how fast you've been lapping at, and so impressive to see.
It certainly is. And again, look at her teammates now. Hannah Barnes swings across the road. So 3 teammates. Amy Gornall also in the mix there. Corin Side, Isabel Darville, all now blocking the front. What brilliant riding by her teammates there. They'll just knock off the pace on these straights. Keep it moving, of course. They won't grind to a halt, but they'll just deter anybody and just increase the amount of time when somebody isn't chasing its speed, and thus offering up more time to the teammates. So the women in red here are doing an absolutely superb job of protecting as best they can the lead of a flying Joe Tindley, of course, on home soil.
Darville even going into that left-hander there onto Drury Lane. She'll take off as much speed as she possibly can without making it too obvious that she's knocking off the speed. So it's so tactical, and I think across the board, you see they're so vigilant. They're looking around constantly, just waiting for any attacks, making sure that they're on the front. You see 3 riders there spread all across the road. Barnes is acute to that. She's not having any of this.
She's not. I mean, what they're doing is perfectly legal. They're not doing anything wrong at all. But on a tight circuit like this, it's the ideal thing to do, just to gently slow them down, nothing illegal. But of course, Hannah, she knows the score. She's very tactically astute. She knows we can't afford to do this now. Time is starting to run out. It's now 6:20, 10 more minutes of racing before we commence the final 5 laps of this British Circuit Race Championship, back after a year's absence.
And what a race it has been so far. Barnes, though, she has been a British Circuit Race champion before. As you say, she's astute to this. She's astute to all the tactics in the book. She's been racing on the World Tour level for a long time. She was a rider who was incredibly strong in criteriums, in the Tour Series, in the Circuit Championships, in the Circuit races, and in the Circuit Series. So for her, she knows that it's becoming a little bit of a danger now, that she knows that if she doesn't do something to try and elevate and accelerate in this chasing group, then Tindley is just going to increase and extend that lead.
Well, they're sponsored by Red Chili Bikes, and she is, well, she's, I don't know, can you ride like a chili? I don't know what analogy I was trying to do there, but it's hot tonight. She's absolutely, you know what I mean, don't you?
She's on red hot form.
She's on red form. Thank you very much indeed for finishing off that clumsy phrase, but she is doing an absolutely superb ride. We have another 10 minutes before they'll see the lap board. So after the 1 hour of racing, the commissaires will put up 5 laps to go, and then of course we'll have this countdown as Hannah Barnes, as you said, 3 times the Circuit Race champion. She knows what to do. I think she's capable of doing something, but what will it be? She's just continuing to ride on the front rather than attack, and I've not actually seen, apart from her really rev up the pace on the front, she hasn't actually launched a singular, sort of clear, emphatic attack yet, has she?
No, and I'm almost waiting for one of these riders to do that, especially one of the riders from our UCI professional teams, the likes of Barnes or Nelson. Abby Smith has tried on a number of occasions, but always gone from the first rider. She's never come from a few riders back, taken that chasing group by surprise, and to try and open up the gap.
Well, she's got 34 seconds now. Joe Tindley from the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes Heidi Klesden team is absolutely flying. The gap came down to 18 seconds for a brief moment. They had her within sight on the same straight, and I think that was back on Union Street, but now that lead has gone again. She is at least 2 straights back in front as her teammates, the collective of her squad, 3 riders from her team, continue to ride in complete unification. They're riding really, really tactically astutely, allowing their team leader, Joe Tindley, to take another lap in front and perhaps build on the lead that she's created since the opening lap of this race when she went clear alone. 8 minutes to go now before we see 5 laps to go. And the crowd, a wonderful crowd here, urging their local hero on. She's clearly starting to tire. Can she hold on for the next 15 minutes or so? So over the cobbles, swings left on this anti-clockwise circuit. That essentially was the highest point of the circuit. For the second part of the circuit, it's dropping, but we're seeing an attack now. One of the riders from Story Racing, I think it's I'm trying to see which rider it is. That's a big acceleration, again closely marked by the teammates of Tindley.
Yeah, Story Racing have been so attentive, haven't they? As they were at the start of the race with Lucy Gadd. We have one more rider on the front at the moment. We have 2 riders in this group, and the rider just going through there, Beth Morrow, who's been on superb form in the Circuit Series during this year, has started to make a move. She knows that if she wants to try and be in with a shout of winning this title or even being on the podium to try and take back some time that Tindley has gained, she knows that she needs to start to make a move now as we near into the final 7 minutes plus 5 laps of racing.
Indeed, this comes around this corner, this brightly lit corner. There we go. That was the gap before. 38 seconds last time through, so she's taken a few more seconds, but another big turn on the front by Story Racing here. Big acceleration. But this group is still compact. And the rider from Team Breeze sat in second wheel as Tindley continues this solo rampage around the circuit. This is where the road starts to rise. This really can't stay clear enough. Just look at the chain on the block, quite high up the block here, just indicating how difficult this section of road is. And when you throw into the mix how difficult these heavy cobbles are to ride over, this is a particularly nasty bit of the circuit where the kind of power is going to really spike through there, isn't it?
It certainly is. It certainly is. And you want to make sure that you're maintaining that effort, maintaining that power, making sure it's relatively even, the effort that you're putting out. But also, not only the gear choice you're thinking about, but also tyre pressure as well is so important to think about on this circuit when you have the change in surface. I'd expect roughly that the riders tonight would be riding around 75 psi on tonight's race.
Yeah, I think I'd probably choose quite. I mean, most of the riders are 25, 26 mil tyres these days, but even on a circuit like this, you might want to opt for 28s on a circuit like this. Give it that extra bit of adhesion on the corners as well. On this primarily, well, solely a left-hand bend circuit. There's some pretty dark bits on this circuit. I'm interested to see a little bit later on how the gents get on in the dark, but you can just see from and again, that can really wreak havoc with the way you see, isn't it? This light and dark can really be hard on the mind to keep that focus, keep that concentration.
It certainly can be, and I think again this is another positive factor for Tindley, who's out alone, that she doesn't have to look out for the wheels in front of you, the riders around you as you start to see the evening turn into dusk.
Well, Hannah Barnes on the front again, still looks as composed as she did in the early part of the race, but I do think this championships, unless something, well, tremendous happens, is going to be won by this woman out in front. Jo Tindley has ridden quite magnificently today. You can see the flash bulbs going off, people with their phones trying to capture this moment of glory for Jo Tindley. Of course, lives locally, rides for a local team, clearly knows this course like the back of her hand, has got it absolutely dialed. She's still got that immense fluidity. She still looks, she's clearly on the limit here. There's no doubt about that, but she's still, although there's a little bit of rocking of the shoulders now, her pedalling style suggests to me she's still in control. I
think mentally as well, you're coming into the back end of the race. You're just seeing the communication between the two teammates there, Isabel Darville and Corinne Side, just speaking to each other, making sure that you're vocally, you're expressing where you want each other to be. But for Tindley, mentally, you're coming towards the back end of the race and you've been out alone for such a long period of time that you almost get a second wave of energy, a second wave of effort.
Yeah, definitely. You can just find that little bit more. It's measured up to kind of 45, 50 minutes, but after that, you know, you can pretty much empty the tank and finish exhausted, and that's what she's going to do. She will push all the way. She still holds around 40, 45 seconds, which is the best part of 2/3 of this circuit. She is at least 2 straights. It's pretty much, I mean, most of the straights are just around 200 metres. There you go. She is nearly 3 straights in front. I think, looking at the shape of this group, the fact we've only got 3 more minutes until they show 5 laps to go, the battle behind Hannah is going to be for the silver medal, unless something catastrophic happens.
It's incredible that you're seeing this ebb and flow of this circuit race with huge accelerations, riders wanting to attack. Then you have a lull where the pace and the gas is completely off from these riders. There's no injection, there's no impetus, there's no cohesion in that chasing group. And I think all coming down to, and partly coming down to the fact that the Pro Noctis Red Chili Heidi Kiedsken team have 3 riders in here with Darville, Sides and Gornall.
Well, look at that, just taking that corner, having a little look round. Again, not needing to brake, not disrupting the chase unfairly, just doing what they can to disrupt, to slow down, because every single attack they've actually followed. And I think the heroine of the group behind, for me, has been Amy Side, who's jumped on every single attack. On the front now, just trying to keep that pace high from the Techers CC is Jenny Holt. But I do feel this group behind now, as they head in to the square, they'll soon, I think, next time round, I would imagine, given the timings we're looking at, 18:28 now, next time through, I'd imagine we will see 5 laps to go. And she's, well, nearly 3/4 of a lap in front now.
This is such a tremendous effort from Tindley. We said before, didn't we?
Whoa!
Wow, 57 seconds now is the lead for Tindley. And when we looked earlier on in the race and we were seeing what she was lapping at around 1 minute and 23, this is a formidable and incredible effort here from the local rider.
Yep, she's just got to stay up right now. We know she's clearly strong. We know that the kind of not the desire behind. She's been beaten. She's totally kicked these guys into touch. She really has. She's ridden an absolute masterclass. But it's been brave as well. It's a bold move to go out in front to race for the best part of an hour and 10 minutes with this class of field. But she has steamrolled it. 5 laps to go, and I have a feeling she might enjoy these. This could be 5 laps of honour.
It certainly could, couldn't it, with that gap of 57 seconds. She's certainly going to enjoy it, but she doesn't have time, though, to take her foot off the gas. As we saw before, as soon as Abby Smith got to the front, she was making those accelerations and trying to attack. In 2 laps, there was already 20 seconds taken off the gap of Tindley, so she knows that she needs to make sure that she keeps her effort on at the moment. She can't enjoy it just yet, although I'm sure she will be enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's another attack on the left-hand side there from one of the riders from Story Racing, who put in a very, very aggressive race, and she started to go clear. So she's immediately tried to be followed by one of the teammates from Pro Noctis team, Joe Tindley, and the gap is around 56 seconds now. Thank you for that, Hannah. You've got your finger on the clock there, but Joe Tindley now is looking set fair for victory. Next time through will be 4 laps to go as the light really fades. She's almost in the same straight. She's not throttling back at all. She is going to enjoy this. 4 laps to go next time through. This is where the road just gently rises, then back into the square, and she will start to believe now that she can be and will be the Women's National Circuit Race Champion. She's just got to stay upright.
She has. Noticeably, you can see her body language. It's changed. You see another injection of pace. It's almost like she's going back to the way she was riding in those opening few laps when she'd first made her move. She was throwing the bike into every corner. You just saw that impetus and the real fight in her that she wants to try and maintain this gap.
Well, the fact that she's riding on home cobbles as well, she lives not too far away, the atmosphere as well, plus the fact you're riding in the evening, there's something strange about the atmosphere. There's a certain kind of pressure and electricity to riding what now is what we call a nocturne, proper city centre race. As night falls, the crowd, few beers, flashbulbs going off. It's a proper atmosphere, and she is going to feel that real adrenaline dump for these last few laps. And
it's that adrenaline that you feel as a rider, that support from the sides of the road. It's an incredible feeling for these riders, and as I said before, this is her strongest. This is her forte in criterium racing. This is where she really excels.
It certainly is. Hannah Barnes leads through. 4 laps to go for the rest of the field next time through. It won't be very long, in fact, before our race leader, Joe Tindley, rounds. This is the kind of last left-hander before that little series, that little chicane that takes you through the finish line. So she's best part of 3/4 of a lap, plus in front of the group that she is being chased by. And she's going to lap another group of riders as she comes back into view now, bathed in the cold and sometimes warm light of the temporary floodlights here, back into darkness again, but in her mind it will be shining bright. Here's the chicane again, left and then right. 3 laps to go for Joe Tindley. This is nothing short of superb.
This is a tremendous effort here from Tindley. It really is. To be so bold to go so early in the race, it's a real audacious attack from the beginning. So incredible stuff as she goes through Lincoln Castle, up these cobbles. She'll make that left turn onto Westgate again.
Well, she's making her own history here, and the battle for second place for that silver medal. Remember, this is a national championships. You've got the gold medal for the race winner, that all-important jersey, the white jersey with the red, white and blue bands that you get to wear for a whole season. That is what this is all about. But the medals are coveted too, a silver and a bronze for the riders behind. I have a feeling that Joe Tindley is going to ride it to glory. Next time through will be 2 laps to go. Great crowds out here in the centre of this beautiful ancient city. Of course, dates back to the Iron Age. First foundations of Lincoln were kind of, I believe in kind of 1 AD, sort of even before that. So ancient site. So much rich history, and a rich history of bike racing. We've had the National Road Championships here on a couple of occasions, but this is the first time that we've had, in the modern era, the Elite Circuit Race Championships. And what a race that these women have put on today, in particular Jo Tindley. Next time through, 2 to go. So a very, very eager member of, I don't know if that was one of her coaching staff on the left-hand side. It looked as if he was kind of completely on the edge there, urging her on. She's got a kind of hatful of time to spare, but she is going to keep on pressing on. And as you said, she's going to be buoyed by this, well, quite electric atmosphere.
You see all the crowds out now cheering her on, and that just adds to that effort. Although the legs will be burning, the lungs will be screaming, having that atmosphere, the crowds, the fans cheering you on, it certainly helps carry you through, doesn't it, Matt? It certainly does.
I used to quite like riding nocturnes. They're very popular in France and indeed in Belgium. And we have them in of course, this country. But given we've got the championships very, very late this year, these championships have got that little bit of an extra, almost continental feel to them. This is about 1.5 laps to go now for Jo Tindley. Next time through, she'll get that all-important bell.
And just ignore the few riders in the background there, because at the moment, Tindley, the riders haven't even gone through the finish line to take 2 laps to go. The clock is still ticking. We're already over 1 minute, so that gap is continuing to grow for our lone leader.
Yeah, so two laps to go, as you say, Hannah, for the group chasing. And there they are, they're going through, well, 1 minute and 12 seconds, so she might actually catch them. If they continue to cat and mouse a little bit, because they certainly have backed off, and just look at the momentum that she's carrying through here. She's flying around this circuit. 1 minute and 11 seconds. Just coming up to the little chicane here. Here we go. This is where Jo Tindley will take the bell. An absolutely wonderful, quite magnificent performance by the woman in red. She takes the bell.
This is such a wonderful effort here from Tindley. I know that she's wanted to win this national title for a long, long time. It's been a race that she's targeted for many, many years since her comeback to the sport back in 2011. And it's been one that she's really focused on. She got a silver medal back in 2018 when we were up north in Stockton, when Anna Henson took the victory in quite similar fashion. She went away solo, Tindley winning the sprint from behind, but tonight a real audacious, bold move from the start. They came here with a solid plan, Pro Noctis Red Chili, and they've stuck to it, and it's worked out.
Yeah, she's ridden an absolutely magnificent solo individual performance, but you do have to take your hat off to the way her team has ridden as well, because they have been magnificent, pretty much marked every single significant move. And that group behind has got some very, very dangerous, talented riders amongst it. But now she can enjoy this last 300-400 metres now, just coming down the back straight. Of course, the laps today, lapping this beautiful historic Lincoln Castle built way back in the 11th century. It's seen some battles in its time. The Battle of Lincoln in 1217, the Battle of Lincoln in 1141, and this is a battle for the elite women's national circuit race championships, and it's been done single-handedly by Jo Tindley. Last word before she crosses the line?
Just incredible stuff here, Jo, and yeah, what a ride. It's just been absolutely solid. A great plan as she even accelerates going into that finish, Matt.
Here we go. Jo Tindley, or shall we call her Jo the Conqueror, takes the title. She is the Women's National Circuit Race Champion for 2021, representing Pro Noctis Red Chili Brights. Heidi Klesden in the red. She's led from start to finish. A performance that was nothing short of magnificent and will live long in the memory of the people here in Lincoln. And of course, well, there's Dean Downing, the coach. Tears bubbling up there for Dino, former champion himself. A very, very emotional win.
Yeah, it's the way that Dean Downing and Jo Tindley have been working together over the last few years. Incredible, incredible stuff there. And you can start to see that emotion coming through both of them.
Well, it's got a silver medal to have a scrap for as well. And just leading around the corner is Abby Smith. Oh, it looked like there was going to be, that shows how important it is to get the right looks. Abby Smith is going to take this one. Abby Smith has opened up a bit of a gap for Team Tipco Silicon Valley. And she's been closely flanked, I think it is, by one of the teammates of our race leader. So who's going to take that all-important silver medal? I think it is indeed going to be Abby Smith. Oh, Hannah Barnes, Hannah Barnes is going to be... there's a crash across the line. 2 riders down across the line. Silver and bronze medalists, unfortunately, crash across the line. That's not what we wanted, of course. I hope they are okay. But our 2 medalists crashing as they cross the line.
Deary me, that was Abby Smith there, who has been doing a fantastic race throughout in chasing, who was unfortunately just clipped the left barrier there. Also coincided of the team of our race winner, Joe Tindley.
Yeah, I think it was Side who actually, here it is. Now there's the moment that she just took a little bit too much speed around the corner, did Abby Smith. Hits the barriers, and then unfortunately fell into the path of the rider that will end up with the bronze medal, because she had crossed the line. I think that was Corinne Side in 3rd place, but I think she's okay. Not seen that before, but there we go. There's the moment, of course, that Joe Tindley took the title to rapturous applause. A chaotic sprint for the 2nd place. Just shows how technical this finish is, and just shows if you don't get it right, if you carry a bit too much momentum into the final corner, you can come to grief. And that was the first crash of the evening.
It was, and real unfortunate there for the riders who were caught up there. Just getting themselves caught, as you say, almost you're taking so much speed into that final right-hand bend that you almost start to drift out to the left-hand side, and you could see that from Abby Smith and Corinne Sides, both who took the medals, silver and bronze, this evening behind Joe Tindley. We wish and we hope both riders are okay. You can see Abby Smith; she is on her feet there. The rider from Team Tivco Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah, it's again. This is it's a finish they know very well. They've lapped it probably 40 times, or give or take tonight, but sometimes that extra little bit of a push, just carried a bit too much pace. She tried to correct at the last minute and straighten the bike, just clipped the barrier, and unfortunately came down. But fingers crossed those guys are okay. As we look at Hannah Barnes there with her sister Alice on the right-hand side. Alice didn't race in a denim jacket. I think that's her casual attire for this evening. I think Hannah Barnes 4th place there by the looks of things. Yeah,
it was a tight battle, wasn't it? Barnes trying to come round Connie Sides. We had a real shoulder-to-shoulder, elbow-to-elbow fight for that bronze medal. But in the end, Connie Sides was just able to take the tighter line, which forced Hannah Barnes unable to come round. It was really tight there for the bronze medal and 4th, 5th place.
Well, there we go. That was certainly an entertaining evening's racing. We've got more to come with the men's road race, or men's criterium, should I say, the men's elite circuit race, which comes in around 45 minutes. But what a display. I don't think... I've commentated on a few crits and watched a few crits in my time. Very rare that we see one rider clip off from lap 1 from the first few 100 metres and never be seen again. I'm trying to remember the last rider to do that, and I can't quite think who it might be.
It's such a magnificent effort, and at that point when Tindley made her move, she made her mark, there was no real reaction, was there, from the riders from behind? For a number of laps, Lucy Gadd of Story Racing was doing a great job in trying to try and control things, to try and bring things back, to try and make sure that the time gap was under control. But for Tindley, she almost got caught after a number of laps of being away solo. Once she had that lull, there was no momentum in the chasing group anymore. She was just able to gain more time and continue to do that over the next hour.
I can do it.
Yeah, it was almost as it did look. I mean, the narrative of the race, it looked like she was going to totally dominate. Then midway through, like I said, just after about half an hour, it looked okay, things could change. That 18-second lead, but that was all that the chase had. It wasn't organised, and that's not a direct criticism of the riders behind. It's often the way that these championships and often crits play out. You don't always see that unification. Everybody's watching each other and aware of riders potentially jumping over, so you don't get that classic cohesion. But that's why it's important sometimes, if you've got the legs, to take a chance and go in front, because you're not disrupted by or kind of encumbered by any of that chaos behind.
Certainly not, but also it's a huge title on the line for the circuit championships. Every rider wants to come away with the British champion stripes and to be able to represent them over the next years. So for many riders, if they might have thought, well, it's way too early to go now. It's way too early to chase Tindley back. This isn't a move that's going to stay away. And as it turned out, she did. Here is our results, Matt.
Indeed, we'll confirm. Jo Tindley takes the title for the Pro Noctis Red Chili. Heidi Klesden bikes. Abby Smith in second for Team Tibco Silicon Valley. Hannah Barnes given there in third place. We'll see, I think these are provisional results. Josie Nelson in fourth for Team Co-op High-Tech. Robin Clay there for Otley CC in fifth. Amy Gornall in sixth for Pro Noctis as well. Great ride by Jenny Hull of the Tekka CC. They'll be very pleased with that. Hannah Bays from AWOL O'Shea in 8th. Isabel Darville, again, 3 riders from Pro Noctis in the top 10. Superb team riding by them. And then rounding out our top 10 in the 2021 Women's National Circuit Race Championships, Beth Morrow of Story Racing.
Simon, I'll move back when they get on you. I'll move back, don't worry.
So we'll get to the podium as soon as we can. The champagne moment for Jo Tindley. Really was a spectacular victory. I think as to any statisticians out there, we'll go back through the annals of circuit racing history and see if anybody performed and won the championship like that. We'll be very, very interested indeed, because that was nothing short of completely emphatic. The silver medalist, of course, back in 2018, Jo Tindley, and now at 34 years of age takes her first national title and will wear that beautiful jersey, that iconic British Champions jersey, for the next 12 years. Nice picture of a sign there. Of course, giving you some pointers to some lovely places to see in Lincoln. It really is beautiful, as I mentioned before. Lincoln Castle itself, built back in the 11th century, as we look over towards the retail park. An enthusiastic crowd gathered for both of the races tonight. It is a double bill, and if you stay with us, you will be treated to the men's championship as well, which brings to a close the first part of the championships. And then on Sunday we can do it all again, because it is the Women's Elite Road Race Championships and the Men's Elite Road Race Championships, both held on the same day. Again, finishing in exactly the same spot as we saw the Elite Circuit Championships. But they do an 8.5 mile circuit, the classic Lincoln Grand Prix circuit, 13 laps for the men, 8 laps for the women. Relatively shortest distances for the men, but I can tell you what, it's going to be an attritional race. It will be split to pieces. We have exceptional fields for both the men's and the women's races on Sunday. But for the time being, it's all about one rider today, Jo Tindley. She'll be making her way to the podium. Very...
Clear to go.
So let's have a little look back at the way that HSBC UK Women's National Circuit Race Champs unfolded. So this was the moment very, very early on that Jo Tindley went away. It was within the first few hundred metres. A couple of riders pulling out early on, but meanwhile Jo Tindley continued to be riding hard on the front. There was several attacks from behind. Hannah Barnes didn't actually really make a particular move, but unperturbed out in front was Jo Tindley. And Josie Nelson put in a big dig with around a quarter of the race remaining. It was an impressive move by a rider, without a shadow of a doubt, has a very, very bright future indeed. Recently been signed by Team Co-op High-Tech Products. And the group, as a result, started to thin. active indeed were the couple of riders from Story Racing as well, Beth Morrow, Lucy Gadd and Eleanor King. But as the light faded and the floodlights were switched on after the gap dropping to only around 18 seconds, the final lap for Jo Tindley was to be a lap of utter glory and sheer joy. She was the champion, and for the next 12 months the local will wear that iconic jersey of national champion. They'll be enjoying this, won't they? I mean, what 3 in the top 10 and the champion and the champion. I mean, that's absolutely wonderful stuff.
It's tremendous, isn't it? And what more could you want from your team, from your riders, from a championship? The first circuit championships that have been on for over 2 years, and to come here with total domination from the Pro Noctis Red Chili Heidi Kedson team. It's just tremendous the way they all rode as a squad. They were the team that had the most riders within the race. They had 7 riders here, and so across the board with Jo Tindley, Charlotte Berry, Isabel Darville, Samantha Fawcett, Jennifer Powell, Corin Side, Amy Gornall. They did such a tremendous job, along with Millie Skinner as well, and just coming into here with such a bold, audacious attack from the beginning, and putting full commitment into the attack and into that move. It was really so impressive.
That certainly was. It's great though. I mean, I've ridden a few nocturnes in my time, but I think because they're quite cut and thrust, you know, they're exciting, a little bit dangerous, but that's part of the theatre, isn't it? There's nothing like coming out to a bike race, pint of beer, hot dog, and watching the racing. Is there? It's really something pretty special, and that's why it's that these sorts of events are really popular in Northern Europe, aren't they? Also be that in the States as well, but there's nothing quite like the ambience and the kind of atmosphere you get at a nocturne.
Certainly not. I mean, it's just such wonderful entertainment. It's exciting, it's fast, it's furious, it's thrilling, isn't it? It's a real adrenaline rush for the crowds, for the fans, but also for the riders to have such support, and all smiles behind the podium at the moment between Tindley and Corin Side.
Yeah, that is Corin Side. She had her hair, in a bit of ponytail for most of the race, tidying things up for the podium quite clearly. And this will be an evening that they will not forget. And their sponsors, of course, in a way, a very busy jersey full of sponsors. You can just see there Abby Smith, who unfortunately wiped out. Maybe that's a little bit of a guilty look. Took quite a lot of speed, and that it's going to be quite interesting. I think a lot of the chaps watching this race thinking, okay, that's going to be tricky. If you do get a group finishing together at speed, that it's different the kind of speed that you get when you're riding the Michaelgate in the road race, because you'd be climbing, but the amount of speed you carry into that corner, it's all about placing, because there's no actual room to move on the inside or the outside, is there? And
we saw from the chasing group into that final half a lap off Union Street onto Drury Lane how much speed you can carry into that fast sweeping left-hand corner, and from there on in, that's where Abby Smith, she made that acceleration and she took it up from the front, and no one was able to come round her to challenge her, and any further back than first or second, maybe third out of that corner, you're not able to move up to try and gain any places into that finish and into that finale because of the nature of the course.
As you say, it's the line only comes into sight with a kind of 20 metres to go, and the line, and basically you cut the apex and then you drift across and finish on the left-hand side, so there just isn't any room. So it's first into that corner generally will win, but an interesting one. It looks as if the 2 riders that did crash are okay. It was Abby Smith and also Corin Side. We'll get confirmation of the exact result as soon as we can for you. But it was a magnificent race. It really was. The field really split early on, and I thought that would be the case. Although there's no real climbs on this circuit, just the short distance there, I think we have had a bit of a change, because we've got 2 riders from the same team on the podium there. So yeah, so Hannah Barnes indeed was not in 3rd place.
Yeah, it was tight on the line, wasn't it? But I think just from it was provisional results, and can always be changed once they get the photo finish as we get our podium getting underway.
That is Corinne Side, bronze medalist in the Women's National Circuit Race Championships, 2 in the top 3 for the team Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes. And then Team Tivco, no doubt about who was second in that blue kit, though she did wipe out just across the line. She looks all right to me, a little bit sheepish perhaps, but a wonderful ride by her. She rode an aggressive race, did her best to try and shut things down when she could, but ultimately they had no answer to the might, to the bravery, to the sheer form and audacity of Jo Tindley. Congratulations all round. Jo Tindley is the circuit race champion of Great Britain, and she's about to get the medal, but then it's all about the jersey, isn't it?
Just hearing that round of applause, that reception onto the podium, just gives you some idea how popular Jo Tindley is, how popular this victory is, and how many people are behind her, not only because she now lives in Lincoln, but also across the board from the riders within the peloton.
Oh, she looks overwhelmed, and, well, just shows how much that means. It's a special, special moment for Jo Tindley, and what a way to do it. And that's a once in a lifetime. It's once in a lifetime to win a national title at this level. But to do it on the home soil where you live is something. No wonder she's at the point of tears. That's absolutely magnificent. Wonderful photograph of 3 brilliant racers who put on a real show for the locals assembled here today. That was a brilliant championships. It's bubbly time, I think. Should we take cover?
Certainly should do. These 3 riders are certainly going to enjoy this every moment of champagne time. This is where you need to take cover if you're in the crowds. There's not too much room to move, though.
It certainly isn't. Here we go. What we're going to give her marks. I mean, she's taking the time. We go up here soon, love. But, no, I'm only joking. Brilliant stuff. Brilliant. There's the moment that she's been waiting for her whole career. A silver medalist a few years ago, and now she is the British champion. But the silver medalist just having a little bit of a problem with the cork. Should be done in a moment. This will make the internet, I'd imagine.
Well, we'll give it to Abby Smith. Only just turned 19.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. Just turned 19. Probably something she's not particularly used to, but I've no doubt she'll be doing that again in the future. She rides one of the big teams as well, doesn't she? So a team that has a really good international race programme, a very well-respected team, and she is certainly a talent to watch out for the future. I think they're shivering. I think it's cold out there, isn't it?
Temperature is certainly starting to drop, isn't it? You can just see these riders. Such a hard effort out there. An hour and 5 minutes. You've got your core body temperature has been lifted now. You know, you do start to get cold after that effort, and you can see it visibly on Tindley. Yeah. Perhaps from the shock and that adrenaline is starting to drop as well. Just to start to realise what she's achieved.
Interview as well, just a bit of insight into. I think it's a bit chilly out there as well.
So, Corinne, third place here today, but the team were working really, really hard there, trying to take that lead. But you've got Jo Tindley out the front. You must be feeling good.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to have her right at the front. Like, started working
and then we saw that slide out and the crash afterwards. Are you all okay? And I guess it's flight racing?
Yeah, I think the adrenaline's helping a bit now, so it might clear off a bit later, but it's just what happens with it.
It is, it's all about bad connection. We're going to let you go get warm and get patched up. We're going to have a quick word with Abby. Come on, Abby. I think, Abby, you may be the wettest and coldest of everybody up here on stage. That was a pretty brutal race, wasn't it? But the team here from Pro Noctis, they really were giving everybody working over.
Yeah, definitely. They deserved it so much because
strings to barrier, so I apologise for anyone else who got in the way of that.
No, don't worry. It's
That was
all
honest.
By the race in third place. So we're going to let Abby go jet one.
I think we've got an interview now with our race winner and new national champion, Joe Tindley.
We're on. Okay. Joining me now on the podium with a rather cold Joe Tindley. Joe, hearty congratulations. A hell of a race. I know you're really cold, so we won't talk to you for too long. You want to warm up. Just very quickly, tell us about the tactics, because that was a brilliant race by you.
For me, it was a case of not taking too many people to the line, because there are better sprinters out there. And I knew that I wanted to try and just break it up as much as I could, but there was absolutely no plan to go as early as I did. And you kind of, once you have that gap, you have to commit to it and hope they start messing around behind. But it went out to about 30 seconds, and then at one point it came down to 18. Yeah. And I was kind of like, fuck, can I turn, start ramping it up a bit more? We're not even halfway through, because it's an hour's race. And I knew that if I could keep them away for the last sort of 10 minutes, the last 5 laps, that they will start slowing down. And then within that last quarter, it went out to about a minute. So I knew that I had it. But you kind of don't want to know that you've had it until you cross the line. But yes. The girls, I know for a fact that the girls were absolutely working fantastically behind as a team, and I couldn't be any prouder of how the girls have ridden. This year's just been great, and they're absolutely fantastic girls, so it's down to them as well. Yeah, it's not just me.
Curran Side joining you on the podium in third place. Abby Smith with us here in the silver medal position. Congratulations to you, Abby. Didn't finish how you wanted it, crossing the line, sort of going over the handlebars. Are you okay?
I think so, and I think hopefully Corinne is as well. But just went a little bit too hard at the end, a bit too keen to finish.
Went very deep. Look, Joe had 2 teammates in the chase, which was probably making it a bit more difficult for you to try and bring in that gap. What was going on in that chase group?
So people were constantly attacking, and it was very on and off. We never really got into a rhythm, so that was partly the reason. But also, as you say, the teammates from finish line, and also just how strong Joe was riding. We can't take that away from her, because we weren't catching her.
I mean, halfway through the race, Joe was some sort of 35, 40 seconds up the road. Were you aware of the gap, or were you just trying to guess?
Yeah, so every lap I was just listening out and just thinking, have we lost, have we gained? I thought at points at 18 seconds, I thought, we're there, but went out again, and I think people mostly settled for the silver at that point, but we have a very, very deserved winner anyway. I'm really pleased.
We're racing this 3 months after we normally would. It'd normally be a warmer evening, but Joe, final word, these are your home roads here in Lincoln. Brilliant to do it in front of this crowd.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, if you're going to win a race, you want to win it in front of a home crowd, I love Lincoln and the area, and the people have been great, so I could hear everyone cheering, so I think that carries you through when your legs don't want to work any longer, but yeah, they keep you going. It's been fantastic, so I'm really happy, like beyond happy. So.
Superb ride, congratulations. You look great in the national stripes.
Thank
well
you
done.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed. That was a spectacular race. Joe Tindley is the women's elite circuit race champion. Look at Lincoln, it looks gorgeous. We'll be back for some more for the men's event in around 20 minutes' time. Thanks very much indeed for joining us, but we'll see you a little bit later.
Well, it certainly seems to work, and you're in home territory here. What was the crowd like out there?
Like, you took the water down, like, you like, sort of, you fall for it, just keep together, when your legs don't want to work.
Well, we're going to let you go get warm. It's going to be turning blue over here on the stage. That's around its jumping. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Your national champion here on the home road. It is Joe Tindley. So amazing stuff. Right, don't forget, you can get the full interview on IT Marine Sport, as well as going out here. Very happy Rick listed down here on the finishing line, all of the squad from the Pro Nazi squad. Now, the riders, it's not going to be long before we see the men coming out on the circuit for practice. So please can we have the circuit clear, the CUC will be squeezing their gate out of the way as our riders come in and around. Now we're going to be moving on to our men's practice session next. So riders already out on the circuit on practice. We are going to bring up on to the stage a twice national crit champion, somebody who knows these cobbles well. Let's have just on the other side of the flat line. Please put your hands together for Russ Downing. Come on, you do better than that. Russ, it's a bit chilly up here, isn't it? We're used to having cricket championships in nice warm conditions, but you've been watching a fantastic women's race, and I think you should probably declare a little bit of an interest in the race as well.
Yeah, you know, Joe Tindley just did a great ride there. You know, she's looking after now the last season. And, yeah, I was calling time checks and getting some orders, so yeah, apologise if my voice is nearly gone. I feel for you really, Matt.
Well, yeah, we've got to keep the body going. Now, you've raced the crit champs, you know what this means to the riders. How much would you give? Would you literally throw yourself into that last corner as we saw our riders do?
Yeah, you were just in the hills there, you know, going over the line on the backside, you know, but you know, it's great, and it's going to make a different atmosphere with it being pretty chilly, like you say. Crit champs was only middle of the year in the sun in the summer, but you know, it's going to be a great race, and with it being a nocturne, even more characters. So yeah, it's going to be a good one.
I bet you wish you were racing this, if you were still racing.
Exactly, yeah, so I was still racing, but you know, the racing days are done, and now it's all about the others, and you know, just had some great emotion there with Joe winning, and he said he's part of the program, just backing through really, so yeah, it was good.
And of course, we've seen lots of riders over the last few months, last few years, doing lots of different things. You and I, of course, seen lots of people on the virtual Dodge J gang. We've seen riders racing on e-sports a lot more. But the crit is something special, isn't it? Because it's so tight and so close, but you're so close to the crowd.
Yeah, you know, the atmosphere is just amazing. You know, online's great. You know, it's got time and place. We break the start with the months up, but yeah, it's great to have some good events back in Lincoln back when it was missing for 2 years, and yeah, it's back and hopefully next year event will get back to normal. And, yeah, Lincoln could have another great event in only a few months' time now. So yeah, we get through the stage for a few months, so 6 months or so. So it's good.
And you're going to be here on Sunday watching racing. Have you got a spot fixed out on the climb?
Yeah, I've had a few guys, you know, saying they're going to ride over, and I might just put the kit on and have a nice social ride and see what we can do. So yeah, I'm looking forward to coming and watching as well. I'm out with 10:50 in the morning, and he said, come on. One last ride with the champion, but I'm sure he could defend it on Sunday, but I got to root for him, see how he's feeling.
Well, I'm not going to ask you for any insider information. I know you're, like you say, regularly riding with Ben and Connor, regular on the J games as well. So enjoy that British topic somewhere if we get to the end. And congratulations, we'll see who's going to grab a couple on Sunday and who, of course, is going to have the title this time round. Cheers, Russ.
Cheers, guys. Have a good evening.
Well, put your hands together. Russ Downing, twice winner of the National Championship, and of course winner of the Grand Prix.
I'll watch your camera, I'll watch your stuff.
So, okay guys, if you don't move, it's really easy. The race will not start till you've moved and done more laps. Okay, gents, you're now causing an issue. Your fellow riders are going to pile in the back. Please present a professional image and leave the start straight. Commissaire team, I've just come across and issued a warning. You will find yourselves DQ'd from the race if you don't move, guys. So great to see Alec Briggs taking the lead. still making sure that you have got good under control. Big blow now with his 2 minutes a few more laps. Like to think those runners as it was. We've got some very experience here. And of course, in the box we have...
Just the same, that's what's that?
Yeah. No difference.
Yesterday.
Good evening and welcome to the British Men's National Circuit Race Championships. This is the 25th edition. Of course, we had a year out. 2021 it is, right on cue. And this historic city of Lincoln is the host for the very first time for the time trial, the road races and the circuit race. And what we have on our hands tonight is essentially a nocturne. So we have a nighttime criterium which will settle who is the champion for the 2021 season. Alongside me, Mr. Adam Blythe, no stranger to success in the National Circuit Race Championships. But before we have a quick chat with Adam, let's have a look at the route that the riders will face today in the centre of Lincoln. It's a very short one, around 900 metres, anti-clockwise, but really does give us a flavour of various different road surfaces. Have a look at the circuit that we're going to be racing tonight.
This 1 kilometre route around the city's historic 11th century castle will host both the men's and women's races over 1 hour plus 5 laps. The floodlit circuit passes through the cobbled castle square between Lincoln Cathedral and Lincoln Castle and will throw in a mix of challenges, including a tricky technical finish area. With a mixture of directional changes, cobbles and smooth tarmac, getting a good line into the finish will be key.
Unknown amount of laps, but we think on estimates they'll be lapping at around 1 hour, 1 minute and 10 seconds. So alongside me, so warming up, riders taking their coats off now. We've got 60 riders here. They're going to be racing in semi-darkness today, but a lot of effort has gone into making sure this circuit has been lighted. So we'll see city centre racing at its best and floodlit for this 2021 edition of the Circuit Race Championships. And of course the winner will get to wear the National Championships jersey for the next 12 months in the city centre racing. Adam, it's you know what it's like. You've been national champion, in fact, under 14s, juniors and elite level. You know what it's like to ride crits, but looking at this particular circuit, this is very technical. Positioning is key, as we know, but what's your general thoughts on what can unfold tonight?
Quite a lot, to be honest. I think there's so many different ways this race can be won. We saw in the women's race, Jo Tindley there nipping off the front and basically riding her own tempo through the race, which, if you've got the legs to do it, that is the best way to do it. But I feel with these men in this field, it is going to take someone very strong to be able to do that. And the likes of newly crowned time trial champion Ethan Hayter. I think if there was any bloke that could sit on the front and split this race up by just doing a long, hard turn on the front, it's definitely him. So it's going to go one or two ways. I think it's going to be, you know, cat and mouse for a lot of it, or a couple of guys are going to have to go off the front and just riders losing contact, sadly. And let's hope we don't have any crashes, but the way this finishes, we saw the women's race there, just after the finish on the last lap there was a crash, so very tight, very technical, and fast.
And fast as well. We'll get Adam to set the clock for us. A few riders just knocking down a couple of gels. Harry Tanfield there in the centre of your screen, World Tour rider, rides for Team Quebecer Next Hash. In fact, was a silver medalist back in 2017 when a certain Tom Pidcock took the title here. Another rider on the front row, riding for Techers CC, John Mould, just on the right-hand side, 3 times the bronze medalist in 2016, 2017 and 2018, and a really experienced campaigner. One of the finest proponents domestically of riding criterium city centre racing, and of course a silver medalist in the Commonwealth Games a few years ago in the road race, so a very accomplished road rider as well. So just a minute or so to go before the start. No neutral lap, no laps out either, Adam. So if you've got a mechanical, you're left to your own devices to chase. And this is a classic, iconic finish as well. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about it later on, but all about positioning coming into the last few hundred metres. First through that series of chicanes. If this were to be a sprint, it's going to win this one. There's no way round otherwise, is there?
No, definitely not. And I think, you know, a sprint into that chicane, that will start on the downhill. So like the second to last corner. So that second to last corner that you come in from the downhill and it slowly drags up, there's going to be a sprint into that, and then it's just a case of holding on until this chicane. So it is going to be bonkers. But the riders will get to do it a lot of times. They'll go around lap after lap. They'll learn when they can accelerate, decelerate, when to push on, when not to push on. So they'll be well aware of it. And no doubt the laps before it, and they're off.
And they are off. The Union flag was dropped the National Championships. The men's circuit race is underway. And bathed in the oxidised orange lights of the street lights, and then laid around the circuit we'll have the specially erected floodlights. And it is John Mould of Wales and Tekasisi. He's got his teammate in there as well today, but John Mould knows how to ride these. Very, very experienced. And the place to be tonight, Adam, from my experience on this one, and what we saw in the women's race as well, is at the front, because look how already in the opening 20-30 seconds riders are nearly 7,500 metres behind.
Yeah, this is going to be absolutely brutal for all of them. And I think John Mould there just getting to the front, trying to string things out a bit, get these riders at the back, you know. John Mould at the front there, he's already accelerating out in the corner. The other guys are already braking. You see Harry Tanfield just moving up on the right-hand side there. Ethan Hayter at the front already. So it is going to be, it's going to be fast, it's going to be furious, it's going to be crazy, and it's going to be very dangerous. You can see already on the downhill into that corner, it's fast.
See a couple of riders in all that all-black kit of St Piran. Watch out for Tom Mazzone as well from the Isle of Man. Training partner quite regularly of Mark Cavendish on the odd occasion. And we've got a couple of riders from Francais de Jure as well, the development team, or Groupama should I say. Joe Pidcock is there. Of course, the brother of Tom Pidcock. And that first lap has come very, very quickly. This is that little chicane that we were talking about. That's interesting. Took the centre line there. Didn't drift around too far. And this top of this particular bit here, Adam, looks flat, but it's about a 1 or 2% little gradient. It's really, really gripping. I think the hardest part physically of the whole circuit.
Yep, I definitely agree. The Lincoln Grand Prix comes up here and they go up Michaelgate, a very steep cobble climb where they come through the finish. It's the same finish, and it's always that part after the finish which is always the hard part of it. It is absolutely brutal, and with a left turn at the top and then slowly dragging downhill again already. If you're at the front, you have a little bit of time to recover on this downhill, whereas the riders at the back there are still accelerating, trying to catch up with these front guys. So it is difficult if you're not towards the front.
It looks like it's actually Lewis Askew on the front now, from the Continental Groupama FD Jure squad. Like you, a former under-14 champion back in 2015, and already riders being jettisoned from the rear of this group. One of the riders from Ribble Well-Type just moving up with that blue kit and the white helmet. Harry Tanfield now on the front there.
I think Tanfield, sorry Matt, I think Tanfield is one of the men for this circuit. He's very good at cornering and takes a lot of risks. He knows how to handle his bike around corners, and he's the kind of engine that if you give him 10 seconds, 12 seconds, he's the kind of guy that you will really struggle to get back. So he knows what he's going to do, and he's doing it right now, getting to the front of affairs. And
if you look at his results recently, over the last few weeks, he's actually got a couple of podium spots and a couple of commissions in Belgium. So he's clearly hunting for a contract for next year. And clearly come into some form very late in the season. He's a slightly heavier rider, so will soak up these cobbles really, really nicely. Not much elevation gain, but for a big lad as well, gets very, very aero indeed. Really focuses, doesn't he, on his position on the bike. But as you say, he has that kind of real top end that he can hold, and already that big turn on the front has already stretched this field out.
Yeah, I mean, this just looks brutal, doesn't it? If you're any more than 15 back here, you can see Ethan Hayter from Team Ineos just hanging around a little bit in that blue and red helmet, right, the red stripe in the middle of the screen there. You can't see it because it's dark at the minute, but I think as soon as you start drifting back a little bit too much, that's when it's going to start to become harder and harder. And obviously you don't want to be at the front, but 8th position, 9th position, I'd say around here is probably the best place to be.
Yeah, definitely. Even to drop back into the top 20, you can just see now riders just popped out the back very, very early on.
3 laps done in the round. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, there's not many opportunities to move up unless you are in the top 10 or even the top 15 here. But for some of these riders, it's actually worth. We know riding on the front's harder than sat in the wheels. But on a circuit like this, it's worth investing a bit to put a few turns in to kind of stretch it out and kind of make it a little bit simpler and easier to move at the front, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. If you can stretch it out and get a couple of guys away with you can almost share the workload, and you get used to doing that workload within a lap, so you get used to knowing where you have to do your turn, you know how long the other guy's going to do on the front, and then you get into a rhythm of things. But these laps, they're lapping roughly around 1:23 at the minute, roughly, so not too frighteningly fast, but it's the start of the race still. There's plenty of fresh legs to go, and we've not really seen an attack yet.
No, we haven't seen an attack at all. Just having a lot of riders just looking around. You can just see Ethan Hayter in that Ineos kit. What a season he's had so far. Absolutely sensational. I think in total 9 wins on the road, including the overall in the Tour of Norway. There he's just drifting out, and as you said at the top, fresh off winning the National TT Championships. And quite interesting that he's clearly feeling good. The fact is, rode the TT Championships yesterday. He's riding this and he's got the road champs on Sunday as well. So clearly, kind of not bothered by what this could potentially take out of him.
Yeah, definitely. I spoke to his coach. I bumped into him in a cafe, and he said that he just wants to race. He just wants to get stuck in, and he wants to race. And I think, you know, there is a possibility. I think he's one of the firm favourites for the road race, and there's no reason why, if he's got the legs tonight, he could take all three. Can you imagine?
That would be a first. We've seen riders, Steve Cummings a couple of years ago took the TT and the road, but we've never seen anybody, I think straight off the bat, nobody's taken all three. But he started off pretty well and looking good. And the thing about Hayter, he can do it all. He is, I think, of the new breed of riders coming through, Adam, as you well know, he is probably one of the most multifaceted riders we've got alongside Tom Pidcock, really.
Yeah, I'd say he is as well. I think, you know, it's a lot of riders this day and age. Young kids can do everything. They're not really specialised at one thing. They can do everything very well. And Ethan is a prime example of that. A very good rider, a strong rider. As you can see, Tanfield trying to flick his arm, trying to get someone to go through. He's not backing off too much. He's just looking for a bit of assistance. But you look at the peloton, how strung out it is. No one's really able to move up a little bit. See John Muldoon started just going through his shot there, looking for his teammate. There he is, Alec Briggs, moving up. But we can see riders distanced already. 6 laps in, 5 laps in already, and there's that little shot of Hayter on the right hand side there in the Ineos kit, just moving up ever so slightly. Yeah,
just making sure he's keeping out of trouble. He's a very, very good bike handler as well, because as I said, he can sprint well, but he can also deliver in bunch sprints as well. He's completely unafraid. He's just very, very versatile indeed. Another rider just moving up that we saw there, that was a Risk Britain of Team Inspired in that green kit with the kind of flag. That is indeed Lewis Askey in second position. Good year from him. Only 20 years of age, 5th in the under-23 World Road Championships, as well as a stage in the Ronde Izzard. No wonder Groupama FDJ have taken him up, but he could be a pick today. Hasn't hit the front just yet, but knows a good wheel when he sees one.
Yeah, he definitely does indeed. And I think, you know, you've got Townsend's brother there. I've forgotten his name, he's just in third wheel from Canyon DHB. So he's right up there as well. 2 brothers, the Tanfield brothers, right towards the front of affairs. But you can see how difficult it is to move up with the paces high like this. No one wants to take it on the front, but it's also very difficult to try and gain a few places when the pace is kept as high as this. And when we talk about Hayter and how good he is, I think ultimately he's one of the favourites for the road race. And I think if you were to pick one, obviously, I think you pick the road race. So there is an element to this of you don't want to take too many risks. You don't want to go through a corner too quickly just in case you might crash.
I mean, it's a good opportunity, again, rather than commit everything, just to stay there or thereabouts and just see how the race unfolds, because you can do a lot of damage in and out if you really want to go for it. But also, it's a good opportunity with a complete day's rest tomorrow on Saturday to actually open up your legs a little bit, you know. So, and of course, when you look at the programme that some of these World Tour riders in this field have had, it's not going to take too much out of them, is it?
No, it won't take too much out of them, indeed. It's just a freshen up, and just for an hour, it's not too difficult for them, and it ultimately can help them quite a lot, really, when you look at the road race. This can be the perfect blowout, if you will, and it's just behind that camera right there. Charlie Tanfield on the front now, and his brother, Harry Tanfield, 4th back in that Quebec Assos kit, but you just see them always pushing on when they come to the front. I don't think there's a particular point, because it's so fast, so short. There's not one place really on here that gives you enough room to attack. So I think doing this is just going to be a wearing down process.
Yeah, we're just going to see this bunch get smaller and smaller and smaller. And we saw that with the women's race earlier on. Won in fine solo style by Joe Tindley. We're not going to see that sort of race say quite clearly. But look at the way that Tanfield, very similar facially. I mean, an exceptionally good time trialist himself, really good team pursuiter as well. Look at that high cadence, they're pedalling really beautifully, riding for the Canyon DHB Sun God team. They've got a big squad here today, so watch out for them. But at the moment, happy to set this pace and just put a lot of riders on the back foot. There's some very, very good riders sort of suffering further on. And moving up now, if this pace is kept like this, it could take you ages, to lap after lap, to move up.
You might never move up. That might be it. It could ultimately be that. And I think what Ethan Hayter's doing is quite clever. He's just left a little bit of a gap, just making sure if there is a crash, it is a little bit of a gap there. But I don't know if you remember on the Great Orme climb in the Tour of Britain, he went up there at his own pace. He wasn't worried about anyone else. He just kept to what he knows. Totally. So he's not reacting immediately to the accelerations. He's doing the accelerations on himself, still all within that slipstream. So he's got that little bit of gain still. But if you look there, just behind Tanfield, another little gap opens. He'll just slowly bring it back, going into the next corner, let it go again. So being very clever at the minute and just doing what he needs to do without putting in too many big accelerations, getting the heart rate right up, which you do not want in a crit.
Exactly, and I think the biggest heart rate spikes on this circuit is once you hit that chicane and the road gently rises up through the feed there, because...
I thought you were going to say the chicane.
The chicane, no, not the chicane itself. I mean, you will get a little bit of an excitement spike, I guess, but generally just here, it's a real grind through this section. And the rider on the front at the moment from Team Inspired is Robert Donaldson, putting in a big turn, lining things out pretty nicely. But it's just been for the first opening 4 or 5 laps, it's been the same 4 riders on the front. And Hayter sat there in 5th wheel at the moment, just behind, a length behind Tanfield, and another rider from Inspired, and then the rest of the field in this dappled light. I mean, a lot of riders here aren't bothering with sunglasses. A few have got clear sunglasses, but these sorts of conditions, very difficult in terms of getting your vision right, isn't it, and your focus, and the different road surface changes.
Yeah, it's very difficult indeed, and it can play with you a little bit, I think. I think you do get used to it as you go around. You learn the course almost, so you know where the holes are, you know when to turn into the corners. So it's like when you go go-karting. After 5-6 laps, you get used to it, you know where to accelerate a little bit, and then you can push a little bit more. But on this course, with the light dropping, for a lot of these riders, it will be about staying safe as well.
Yeah, it certainly will. Great to hear those cowbells going. And I'll tell you what, Team Quebec next Hash rider, Harry Tanfield, is just happy to set the pace at the moment. Has a little look round, looks at some of the damage. You'll see a few grimaces. Plenty of riders in the blue there for Canyon DHB Sun God. They had a very, very good Tour of Britain. Both of us commentated on. They're real animators of that race, happy to get stuck in. And of course, that race and these national championships, so important to everybody. Even the World Tour riders, everybody wants to wear that national champs jersey. And you know what it's like to win a crit. I mean, to simplify things a little bit, Adam, what sort of attributes do you need, especially on a circuit like this, to win a race like this?
Good ones. You need to be fast, you need to be responsive, and you also need to have a cool head on your shoulders. I think, you know, if you're aware of the effort you're putting in all the time, and you only really want to make the efforts when it's going to come to something, when it counts. So with all these little efforts like Tanfield's doing now, he's capable of it, but ultimately we're seeing no attacks. We're just seeing it just policed around. The group's still big, so although he's doing a big effort, what it looks to be, it's not going to be too big, but all it's doing is affecting him more at the minute. The guys in 2nd, 3rd wheel are getting a great ride from him, and if he looks behind and sees Hayter, you know, then you realise, I'm towing Hayter along. So you just have to be very clever, stay up to the front, and ultimately just try and keep those spikes within your heart rate to a minimum. The more they go up and down, the more times you have to recover from that. So if you can keep that heart rate sort of level throughout the whole race, that's when you're going to be better off at the end of it.
I'll tell you what Tanfield is good at. Is taking those corners and opening up the gap of a couple of lengths. I mean, for a tall rider, generally the kind of riders, the smaller, chunkier riders, generally corner better, but for a big lad, he really corners well, doesn't he? Looks pretty graceful, as this group now is, I reckon, only about 30 riders left in this front group. The last rider coming through there was Alec Briggs from Tekkers CC, a lad we both know very well, and probably one of the best bike handlers in the peloton, and he's still hanging on, but he's having to work very, very hard against the raw power that some of these World Tour riders have.
Yeah, he was one of the last on the grid, so he'll have just been playing catch-up throughout this race. And he must have done, 15 laps by now. I've not been counting. And now we see Ollie Wood coming towards the front from DHB. One of the riders that's been on the track primarily throughout this year, building up to the Olympics. Charlie Tanfield, another one of his track riders and teammates with him. So Canyon DHB moving up to the front now, 3 riders in the top 3. And if you're looking at that as another rider, you go, oh, there's 3 riders here now. They could let a gap go. We know how hard it is to move up. We know how hard it is to get round people. So you need to be aware of that. They'll set a hard tempo, and this could be it now until the end of the race, where they just keep this tempo on in that with Ollie Wood, maybe their sprinter in 2nd position. Just keep him sheltered.
Yeah, they've also got Jim Brown in the mix as well. So Tanfield again on at the front. Charlie Tanfield really starting to drive this. A little bit of a flick of the elbow for his teammates to come through. A bit of a glance, just like what we're doing here. A little bit of communication there. Lots of glancing round. Riders always trying to see how big the group is, because you really need to know. It's so, there's not many opportunities to actually assess what's going on in a race, and there's not that many straights, because you're just on the pedals all the time, aren't you? Then as soon as you're off the pedals, you're into a corner. So to actually get any sense of what's going on behind, you know, you've got to really kind of pick your moment.
Yeah, and especially on this course, because the only chance you have to really get to look behind is when you're going downhill. The rest of it is either uphill or you're going around corners. So as you said, Matt, it is very difficult to assess the situation and look behind you. And I think that's a lot of the riders are obviously well aware of that, as we see John Mould, I think that was there, sadly, yeah. So that shows how hard it is. First rider off the front, straight away. And that just shows if you slip a little bit back, further back, it just gets harder and harder and harder.
Yeah, look at this. 3 riders from Canyon DHB at Sundrod driving it through. Askey up in there. A couple of riders from the 47 also. That was William Tidball from Team Inspired. They've got numerous riders up in the front, have the men in green. Hayter on the right-hand side. Again, never dropping into first wheel, always like second, third, fourth wheel, not happy to kind of ride in the wind. Of course, he's isolated, hasn't got any teammates with him at all, so he's got to ride his own race, and he'll know that everybody else will be looking to him. So at the moment, he just needs to keep out of trouble, not do too much, and just see how the race evolves. If Hayter wants to win this one, he's obviously got to be strong, but he's got to be super smart as well, hasn't he?
I think he has, and just looking the way he's cornering, he's going to have to attack early. He's going to have to make it hard for a lot of laps because he is not the most confident in cornering. You can see people overlapping him, letting the wheel go a little bit. You can just see people stacked up behind him a bit there. So if he wants to win, he can't. He's a very quick sprinter, obviously, but the speed that other riders can take on him, he can use it as a slingshot round one of the corners and really put him under pressure. So I think if he is going to, if it comes down to a sprint, he's going to have to start early on.
We're looking at the newly minted national time trial champion of Great Britain, Ethan Hayter, a bright star who has had, well, quite frankly, a stunning season. Lewis Askey on the right-hand side for Groupama FDJ. Rides for their feeder team at the moment, but will be moving on in 2022 and 23 to the World Tour team, and an attack by one of the riders from Ribble, well tight here around that corner. Good move as they spread across the road and the pace slowed, as Briggs still tries to fight to stay on the wheel of it. He looks actually pretty comfortable. He's the kind of rider that could just float off the back, but good little move here, Adam.
I think that's Matt Gibson now. So he did this in the first round of the Tour Series, got himself off the front, and he was pretty much, I think he lapped almost the peloton. So a rider who knows how to judge his effort. He was third on the stage going into Tour of Britain there and into Edinburgh, and with some very, very high quality riders. So he's a rider that you can't really give much room to, and if you give him too much room, as we've seen around this circuit with the women's race, the riders out front are able to almost hold the same pace as the peloton. It goes and forth and it comes back and it goes out again. So being off the front on this kind of circuit is almost the best place to be if you've got the legs to hold on to it.
Well, Gibson it is. With that, I think he's had a bit of a haircut actually. But a good little move off the front, gets pretty low on his bike. And of course, given the people that are kind of managing this team and are in this team, Dan Bigham, they're kind of so much attention to detail in terms of the aero kit. It might not actually be Matt Gibson. I think it's one of the other riders who's gone clear actually. Once he spins round, we would certainly looks similar facially.
Yeah, but I don't think that is Gibson. Apologies. It does look like him, similar style, but just a bit too low and too narrow a bars to be Matt Gibson there. But a great ride so far. It's just, I'm not sure who it is, trying to find a number or work out who it is there, but doing a good ride, and this is what he wants, this sort of bunching up at the back. No one wants to show the cards and attack to it, and this is where the likes of Tanfield come into play. You know, the rider that does the big long turns on the front, lap after lap after lap, he'll slowly reel him in a little bit, but he doesn't want to do that too much. If he does, he's ultimately towing a bunch along with him.
Exactly. Well, he should get the number 27. That's given us a nice indication. That's Charles Page from the Ribble Well-Tied Pro Cycling team. So Page off the front and looking good. Must admit, facially, did look very similar, but it isn't him. Page looking good, and has a gap of around kind of 40, 50 metres. There it is, Charles Page. To get a great shot from the rear of the moto, giving us a sense of the speed that they're rocketing around this circuit at the moment. Back into that little chicane before the finish. Getting a decent line dialed, and Adam, well, look at that group already. There's what, 25, 30 riders out of 60 in the front group?
Yeah, I think as well there, we're just talking about Alec Briggs on the back. He's slowly moving up that peloton there. What's remaining
Devil,
of it.
He's like devil take the hindmost,
yeah,
isn't he?
But it's almost, you know, you can either be at the front of this peloton or the back of it, and I think if you're at the back, you can almost let the gap go a little bit on the uphill, the hard section a little bit, let that go away from him on the downhill. Just keep your pace constant so you're not, as we spoke about before, not like doing too much power. Your power has to stay on sort of a similar level. He'll know now after doing this circuit many times where is the place to push on, where is the place to ease off of it. So he's probably just doing that and making his way slowly to the front, cleverly.
Yeah, he's doing a good job. You know, he's one of the best bike handlers out there. You know, and also multidisciplined as well. I mean, if you think about the sort of rider it takes to ride the Red Hook Crits, for example, which is basically this sort of riding on a more of a flowing kind of circuit, but with no brakes, fixed wheel. You get the sense that he's a rider that knows how to handle his bike. That is, oh, there's a crash on the right-hand side on that corner. The first crash in this men's elite championships. Not too sure who went down, but I don't think anybody else came down with him. but that was a crash at speed on that left-hander.
I'm hoping that's not Hayter. No, it's not Hayter there. I don't know why I'm hoping it's not him, but it's not Hayter, and this will cause problems now. If you're a little bit further back, just to close these gaps up a little bit can be a big, big effort.
Two riders down.
Canyon DHB rider there.
I think that was one of the riders from Team Inspired. I think it might have been Donaldson, but we'll get number 42. It is indeed Donaldson who is down and out. He will not get back in. He's up, and thankfully he appears to be okay. But he was riding well, but just shows if you get it wrong on a circuit like this, especially this time of night, with a little bit of moisture perhaps on the road surface.
That's definitely true, and you can see just gaps opening now. Tanfield and Hayter just coming across for it. You've got Tanfield there. I think it's Tom Pidcock's brother, Joe Pidcock there. Charlie Tanfield as well. Hayter coming across to that. And then the other rider there who we spoke about from Canyon DHB, I've forgotten the name, apologies already, my memory is terrible, but just through that little crash.
Charles Page.
Charles Page, apologies. Just gaps opening up immediately through that gap, through that crash, and getting back to that big, big effort.
Indeed, well, that's Ollie Wood just trying to get back in contact. And I think Charles Page from the Ribble Well-Tight team, and that red helmet has got back in touch. But you're quite right, Adam, and that's a really, any kind of, they're just feathering the brakes, not even braking around that corner. If you brake down that corner and you don't just lose lengths, you lose so much momentum, and the gap just opens out. And at this sort of speed, the gaps are nigh on impossible to close. We're going to have a look at that crash on a replay in a few seconds' time as this group of 5 riders starts to move clear, and that is a big, big gap. So we've got our sole leader, Page. It's the first rider into the corner. No, third rider, that's Donaldson, who just wiped out. And another rider just braked. The rider from Canyon DHB just locked up the back end and drifted around that corner straight into the barriers.
Yeah, it's not pleasant, but they've done this a lot of times, this corner, so they know what's coming. They just took it a little bit too quickly, the stress of trying to move up. You just see Hayter just around that back again, just sort of letting the wheel go a little bit, bringing it back, just riding his own tempo the whole time, within staying in contention. The riders at the front now, this looks to be it, the group that will go away. You can see them sharing the workload a bit. The face of Tanfield, look, Harry Tanfield, sorry, in third wheel, just starting to grimace a little bit. Now, for any riders that want to pick up this, that want to get onto the back of it, it's going to be a monumental effort. And Canyon DHB, not a rider in there. They need to get doing it quickly.
Well, they've got Charles in, haven't they? They've got Charlie in there, so they again. But again, there's some other dangerous riders in the mix as well. I mean, he's clearly a very, very good crit rider, an exceptionally multi-national champion on the track as well. Hayter is definitely losing a couple of lengths on these corners, but then getting it back on the straights. He's definitely riding with a little bit more caution, especially, I would imagine, in the light of that crash we saw early on. So Hayter's thinking he's just riding this a little bit more conservatively than the others. And if they get a sense of that, that's what they can exploit a bit later.
But you know what I think he's doing? He's almost ridden perfectly. I think he is a little bit nervous on the corners. You can see his body language a bit tighter. Each corner he drifts off the back, and he's not really getting out of the saddle, just slowly bringing it back. And what that does after each corner, normally these riders will flick their arms, someone will come through, and if he's just a couple of bike lengths off the back, he's able just to slot in each time. And so he's just through when we've seen this breakaway go, we've seen again just a bike length off the back, another flick of the elbow there from Pidcock. So when he comes through, Hayter's a little bit off the back, he'll probably slot in just in front of Hayter.
Yeah,
have a look at him. Yep, I'll slot in front of him again. So for Hayter, it's almost perfect that he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah, he's kind of weirdly saving, although he's got to expend a bit of energy to get back on again, he's saving energy because he's not on the front. So it's quite an interesting little move there. And also, you don't want to ride outside your comfort zone on a circuit like this. I mean, and different riders deal with these sorts of conditions in different ways as well. Especially, we cannot kind of underestimate this light change. I used to find it really, really difficult to go from really dark into really light. There's this moment that the eyes take to adjust, the dilation of the pupils changes, and it can be absolutely critical. But Hayter just definitely backing off a little bit, but Tanfield cornering like he's on rails around here, really looking good, turning that huge gear, and on this one of the longer straights here, really able to get that big, big power down, isn't he?
Yeah, he does indeed. They've definitely opened up this gas time. I can't see this coming back now. These riders are all committed to it, sharing the workload, and that's it. Look, it's gone. The riders are still not in view, just coming into vision now. We've got Canyon DHB, looks like Ollie Wood on the front, trying to bring this back a little bit, but for these riders, I don't think they're going to get this back at all now.
I don't think so. That gap is opening up, and when you look at the strength of these riders as well, it isn't just a group that's attacked and gone clear in what we call a kind of soft move. They've been the strongest riders in the race, the riders cornering the most as well, and clearly the riders on form. And combined, this is a pretty formidable quintet of riders, and in front Pidcock at the back, Ethan Hayter there for the Ineos Grenadiers, Charlie Tanfield from Canyon DHB. The man on the front is Charles Page from Ribble Well-Tight in the red helmet, just taking this tight left-hander. And rounding out the group in front from the World Tour team, Quebec and Next Hash, is the brother of Charlie Tanfield, Harry Tanfield. And there is a big, big gap. And the rider on the front in the blue, well, they're happy. They've got a man in the front.
Yep, they're happy indeed. You can see them looking around. Another rider comes to the front from DHB, but it's not really up to them. They've got Tanfield in there, so they don't really have to chase. They can bring it back to within a little bit of touching distance maybe, but if they're going to bring this back, it's going to be a monumental effort to get them even within touching distance. You can see these riders working well together, pushing on up, which is almost this part, the longest part of the course where you can make a difference.
It's the most consistent part, isn't it? Yeah.
So this is the bit where they're really opening up the gap, and just round the chicane now into the finish. But throughout all these people within this group, they've all got, well, 3 of them, I think the 2 Tanfield brothers and Hayters, similar attributes, where they're all very powerful, long sprint, big, long, high-end power effort. So I think for the lights, if either of them want to win this, they're going to have to start doing this from early on till the finish. And I think, you know, the course is almost too quick, and the straights aren't long enough to really gain a big advantage quickly. And the likes of Hayter, we've seen he's not cornering as quick. So for the other riders, if they take that into advantage, if they hit him into a corner where you know he's nervous, shake him up a little bit maybe, that's their perfect opportunity.
Yeah, and if you think about, especially the rider just swinging off the Harry Tanfield, the way he's been riding, the form that he's clearly in, especially in these comesses with those tight corners, riding over cobbles. We know how well he can corner, but he's the type of rider that if he takes, you know, on a course like this, carrying pace out of a corner, gaps opens up just a couple of metres on somebody, he can then keep it going, and then to close the gap is now impossible. The time he got on his wheel, he completely gassed to open it up. So Hayter, you know, very versatile, but arguably out of all these riders out in front, the most explosive. So he delivers kind of his pace in a slightly different way, and he's going to really have to think about this. Still a long way to go. It's 4 minutes to 8 now, so 54 seconds is a big, big gap, Adam. I tell you what, if they keep this rate of gap increase in the next kind of 5 laps, they're going to lap them.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, the rest are going to be out the race.
Yeah, definitely. And I think they will lap them the way that they're going. And it's quite funny, isn't it, now they've got this gap already. So if you're in this group, you can almost say, no, I don't want to do any work, lads. I'm all right, I'm quite happy with this. I'll sit on the back. If you lot want to keep smashing your heads in, I'm happy with that. They've got the gap big enough now where they can sit back, relax a little bit. Alec Briggs, who we spoke about from Tekka's second to the back. So this group's still riding on the front, but I just think on this circuit, 54 seconds, it's almost a lap. They're only 20, 30 seconds off the back of them.
The 2/3 of a lap in front, as I say, and it looks as if the Canyon DHB team are pretty aware of that. They're actually keeping on chasing it. I think this is actually Lewis Askey in the front group. And we'll have to have a little look in a second. And we'll just catch that bib number on the back, which we didn't. So I think it is indeed Lewis Askey in that front group, not Mr. Pidcock.
Apologies.
No worries at all. It's difficult to pick out the numbers in this kind of low light as well. So Askey moving up to World Tour, as we said before, tall, rangy rider, very, very powerful. And this is a tough group, unless something strange happens, Adam. And just looking at where they're riding, they're all happy right now to ride for the next kind of quarter an hour, 20 minutes like this, just to make sure that one of these 5 wins. But the interesting dynamic within this group of riders is the brothers riding on different teams, but Charlie and Harry, clearly you'd imagine a bit later on are going to start maybe communicating, not overtly, but they're certainly not going to chase each other once they start attacking, are they? just beaming their thoughts to each other, their tactics. Maybe post-it notes, who knows?
Who knows, yeah, but they definitely will, and they'll know how each other will want to win and the best way for them to win as well. So they'll know what's happening, they'll know in between them what they're capable of. They've probably done a little bit of training together, speak together quite often, no doubt, as well. So, yeah, they will know each other like the back of their hand, basically, like they're his brother.
Just while the race kind of settles down into a bit of a rhythm, the gap's around a minute. I do think we could see a situation where the laps now. I don't know how that's going to affect the race, because generally if you are lapped, you're removed. But there's prize money up for grabs, and there's 6th to 10th place up for grabs. So they might actually let them pass and then continue to race, or they might be asked to sprint after an hour and leave these guys to actually battle it out for the title. But I did a French nocturne once, a crit like this in the middle of the night. And it went under a block of flats, so like a bridge underneath some flats, and some lads in the flats were dropping flower bombs on us in the race. So it was like being in a video game in real life. So we had to dodge these flower bombs, and the gendarmes had to go into this block of flats and try and remove the lads because one guy got hit with a direct hit. Anyway,
I thought you were going to say you hid under the bridge then for 18 laps and then jumped in.
Did that later.
Brilliant.
Oh, only in France. God, that really did shake me up. I thought, what on earth's gone on? I thought it was an explosion. Look round next lap and there was bags of flour. Anyway, back to the race. Charlie Tanfield, no bags of flour in Lincoln, just pints of beer and a good spirits, because we're riding in a really historic place. And Adam, I think it's worth, as we get to roughly around the halfway point, reiterating, we talked about it with Hannah in the women's race, how kind of iconic Lincoln is to British cycling. Just to kind of, the fact we've got the Lincoln Grand Prix, the longest running kind of blue ribbon classic. We've had national championships here before, but the fact we've got the TT, the Crit Champs and the road here is pretty special, isn't it?
I think it's brilliant, and I think especially for a lot of the riders that we don't necessarily see race, we never see these riders, a few of them really do the Crit Nationals, just because it's completely at the wrong time of the year and it's just a big trip for them that they might not have to make and an expense. But while they're here, why not do it? I think it's brilliant to put all these events together, and being in Lincoln as well, as you spoke about, Matt, is sort of an icon of British cycling and where it is, and the race that happened here. Obviously the famous Lincoln Grand Prix, the Nationals here a few years ago as well. It is it's a brilliant place to ride your bike, not just in the centre obviously, but around it as well. It's definitely makes some fantastic riding, as we can see now through tonight, a 900-metre circuit, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, it is pretty tight. It's an anti-clockwise circuit. It actually goes round the edge of Lincoln Castle, built back in the 11th century by a certain William the Conqueror. Its main function in life was to be a prison, actually, and a court of law. And we've seen a couple of battles actually over the years here.
Some prisoners tonight, Matt.
Yeah, no, these five aren't taken in prisoners, are they? They're really not, as we just see. This is, and looking forward to the road race on the weekend. That part that we just saw the lead brake go past, that's going to be the feed zone in the road race, which I'm very excited about. I mean, we had the time trial, we've had some dynamic racing so far, but Lincoln, I think it's a worthy home to see the national championships back, because of course all the champions have been champions for 2 years or just over.
Yep, they have done indeed. So I think Ben Swift, if he's going to do that, he'll be reigning champion if he won again for the 3rd year running.
Indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, there we go. 26 seconds, it's saying. So if that is correct, the gap's actually coming down a little bit.
It was. I just noticed there, Joey Walker, he was on the front, the reigning champion, Crit National champion. So he was on the front there, just trying to bring this gap back a little bit. But you can still see just behind them, not quite in the same straight still. And there's that classic saying, isn't there, in cycling, I'll say that again, isn't there?
I've never heard of that one, Adam, I tell you, but tell me more.
It's out of sight, out of mind, and they are still out of sight, out of mind. And I'm not sure, you must be on this same straight for maybe 10-15 seconds on this circuit maximum.
Yep.
So I think when you do get them inside, that is the point where it is doable, but still, it's a long straight when you're especially flat out.
Yeah. And what will have happened at the front, I mean, although crit racing is dynamic, it's short, 1 hour of racing tonight, plus once we've done an hour, we then add on 5 laps. So at the beginning of the race, it's kind of an unknown distance in terms of how far you've travelled, but it's an hour of racing and 5 laps. So that I kind of like that air of mystery, but because of the very, very quick start, there's no doubt this 5 in front are now thinking about trying to win it, trying to wear this jersey, trying to win the iconic bands of British champions. So the pace would have just knocked off a little bit. So rather than riding kind of at threshold in the breakaway, they've just knocked it down so it's comfortable. So now, I'd imagine, Adam, they've got the ability to adjust the pace should the gap really start to drop down.
Yeah, I think so. I think they can play with it a little bit, do shorter turns, do longer turns, push on certain places. And these riders now will know within this breakaway which is the best point to be on the front when they're doing their turn on the front. They don't want to do it on the uphill. They probably do want to do it on this downhill, so they get a little bit of an easier ride. So each rider will have their own little difference in terms of, this is where I want to work on the front, this is where I don't want to work on the front, I don't want to be on the front here. Maybe they've got bad legs, they want to be on front on the hard bit so they can slow it down a little bit, give them a chance to recover. There's so many different elements to being in this breakaway, and individual elements which will suit each rider differently, that they're all trying to manage the best they can.
Yeah, you're certainly right. Tanfield on the front, the slightly elder of the two brothers, looking for a contract for the 2022 season. Unfortunately, his team have just missed the first deadline to register as World Tour. They've had a few financial problems, unfortunately, kind of with a team that rose like a phoenix from the ashes at the end of last season. I do sincerely hope the team can pull a budget together. And you wonder if it's come a little bit too late for the man on the back, but over the last few weeks he's really got into form, that is for sure, and it certainly won't do his hopes of getting a contract any harm if he were to pull on that jersey. Already a multiple national champion on the track, as is his brother, but the gap kind of steadying a little bit now. I think that's Max Stedman on the front for Canyon.
Yeah, I think for these riders in this peloton now, it is going to be difficult to get them back. You just see Alec Briggs there, second to the back, going through again, just hanging on to that group. But it looks to be, you know, something monumental has got to happen within this group. This is the third group on the road. They are no doubt about to be caught. So that group from Joey Walker, we thought was coming back a bit. There's actually 3 groups on the road now, and you know, this group here, the leading 5, is only, what, 10-15 seconds off the back of that group, so they will soon be pulled out. 36 seconds the gap.
Yeah, 36 seconds. It was up at around a minute, so they've definitely settled down. I mean, there's no real desire. They don't need to lap anybody. That's not going to make it. They just need to make sure they stay away and hold on and build enough of an advantage to ensure that they have the opportunity to go for the win, and I certainly do think that's going to be the case. But anything can happen in crit racing, but at the moment, Adam, these 5 are working very, very well as a collective unit, and I still think there's a little bit under the hood. These are 5 classy riders, all in very, very good form. I think the outsider for me, again, I say this with the greatest of respect, is number 27 at the back, Charles Page, who is riding in quite illustrious company.
Yeah, he is indeed, and he's a rider that started this whole thing off. He was the original attacker. He was the one that went clear solo. So he's done the right thing, getting clear, waiting for the leaders to come to him, which they did. And he is a little bit of unknown to them. And, you know, riding the British scene, you do ride crits a lot more than the other riders will have done in that group at the front there. So he will definitely be ready for it. He'll be ready for this, and he'll know exactly what he has to do. They've ridden this course so many times, they've done so many laps that he'll know when to be at the front, when to attack, when to accelerate, as they all will. But doing crits a little bit more, he might just have a little bit more understanding of what he can get from himself and how far he can push the limits, especially on these corners, than the others maybe.
Yeah, definitely. And it is worth reiterating as well as the iconic status of Lincoln in terms of not just its own history, but as a place with real cycling heritage and one of the longest standing individual one-day races on the calendar. Actually, the Lincoln Grand Prix itself dates back to the mid-1950s, and the first edition was way back in 1956. This is the 25th edition of the Men's Elite Circuit Race Championships.
Did Russ or Dean win that one?
Yes, both. Yeah. They both won it. So, yeah, of course they did. Of course they did. Actually, it was great to see. I know you were watching in the studio with us, Adam, and to see Dean Downing almost close to tears. I mean, he's a very successful coach now and coaches Joe Tindley, and that was a wonderful thing, wasn't it, to pass on that experience. It's such a lovely couple of brothers, aren't they, but really good coaches. To see the riders coming through to national success is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Yeah,
it definitely is indeed, and I think with especially this race, we spoke about Lincoln hosting this nationals and seeing the calibre of rider almost in a crit step up a notch from the previous years, and that's no disrespect to the other riders, but just the riders are here, as we've seen Ethan Hayter, Tanfield as well within here, and you know, it probably means a little bit more maybe, so it's probably that little bit sweeter. And for Dean just to be there on the side of a road, a part of it, it's nice to be able to watch your riders who you've coached to the best ability they can possibly be coached at to achieve something.
Oh, definitely. Well, Charles Page, 22 years of age, of course spent a couple of years riding for the Ribble World Type Pro Cycling team. We'll know Charlie Tanfield pretty well because he rode for Canyon back in 2019 and 2018, but he's looking pretty good at the moment. Look back at a few of his. They've had a pretty decent programme, have Ribble World Type in fact. Colin Sturgis, the DS, the former British Road Race Champion, World Professional Pursuit Champion, Tour of Norway, Tour of Slovenia, Tour of Estonia and Tour of Britain. So for one of the domestic teams, he's had a very, very good race calendar, but clearly, as well as that kind of endurance side, he looks like a pretty punchy rider, and as I said, very active and clearly confident on this sort of surface.
Yeah, definitely indeed. And it looks to be these riders are taking the turn at the minute just to do almost a full lap on the front almost. So by the looks of things, you just saw Tanfield then. Each rider that's doing a turn on the front is almost pulling off on that climb. Just as they come through the finish on that cobble bit, they pull off the front and they go slightly backwards as they're just catching that third group, and the Tanfield brothers having a chat together, wonder what they're chatting about. Maybe what's for dinner tonight?
Probably what's on the telly, or have they set up Eurosport, a GCN Player or GCN Plus to record it? That's probably what it's all about. We shall see, but definitely a conversation there at the back, and they've done it out of sight of the other riders. They just finished their conversation as Page rose alongside there. Very, very interesting.
I've just had a thought blast in my head. They're catching this third group on the road now. If there's an ideal time to split this up a little bit, if those riders catch them quickly, those riders that are a bit of a mess within that third group that they're catching on the road, that can cause some disruption. So if one rider, one of the brothers, Charlie or Harry, attacks from this group and gets in the middle of them, that can cause a lot of disruption for these other riders trying to respond to it. Other riders may be getting in the way. So maybe that's what they were chatting about. When we catch that third group, go through them and the other riders might get in the way and allow that gap to just grow enough, maybe.
I think it's
cheeky.
I think it's a left field theory, but I've seen it happen before. We know that
riders.
Well, there we go. Well, you speak of experience. That's why you're here, because you've done a lot of unusual things before in terms of tactical plays. But no, you're quite right. I mean, we see riders not so much in crits like this, but we see in road races riders using the. Well, they're about to be lapped now. This is the group led by Lewis Askey, the youngest rider in this breakaway at 20 years of age. Very powerful long turn on the front. Charlie Tanfield, 24 years of age, the younger brother of Harry Tanfield, who sits on the wheel of his sibling. Working very well together. Charles Page, 22, from Ribble Weltite, third, and the most experienced and decorated rider in this group, 23 years of age. We've not even talked about his Olympic silver medal in the Omnium this year. Ethan Hayter, he really has got it all. But a real talented group out in front. But yeah, I do wonder what that conversation was. But it could be about trying to go long, or as you said, using the group to kind of attack the wrong side of, almost using them like a kind of moving road island that we see in road races sometimes.
Yeah, exactly that. And it is one of the perfect things to do. And I think around this circuit, there's few places to attack where you can really make a difference on this circuit. I think it's just going to have to be through going harder and harder and harder and harder. And hopefully the riders haven't got the legs. And then you yourself having the legs still to be able to do something. It is such a difficult circuit in terms of being able to get the best out of yourself in terms of your acceleration, your stamina, your long-term burst acceleration. There we go. There's the third rider stopping on the road there. So a lot of riders getting out of this first group on the road's way. Almost, maybe.
Yeah, what we're going to see here, Tanfield's almost dropping back, but those riders have slowed right down. They'll have been instructed to do that by the race commissaires, and they will now be removed from the race. They'll probably get themselves towed off. They've got time to go to one of the local pubs and get themselves a really good view, because some of the pubs, especially in the Lincoln Square in the finishing area, have got a absolutely wonderful view. And I can tell you what, we've got a great crowd here tonight. We will have wonderful crowds on Sunday as well for the elite men's and the elite women's road races. One thing that Lincoln can do is pull in the crowds, and as we've talked about almost ad infinitum, is the fact that people will travel a long way to watch these races. These coveted jerseys on offer, 10 national champs jerseys over the last few days. We saw several awarded yesterday for the time trial, 2 more tonight, and of course 2 more on Sunday as well. But the big question is, difficult to call this one, because we've got 5 riders, all with great form, but all with mixed attributes, and they can all win, or they have to win in a different way. They're not going to want to leave this for a sprint, that's for sure. We are going to see riders try to go long. I'm intrigued to see how these last few laps are going to play out, Adam. It's 12 minutes past 8, so we've got 17 minutes more of riding. Then they'll put 5 laps to go. So we're getting in to the pointy end of this race now.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see what this Charles Page can do. I think outright sprint that Hayter is the quickest, but he's not the best corner. I do believe with that little chicane towards the finish, if someone just gives him a little nudge or a little elbow, he will give into it. Yeah, he will, because he doesn't want to risk anything for the road race. So I think Page, if he can get into that corner first, and if he's able to open that sprint up and take ultimately a bigger risk than what the other riders do, I believe they'll do that, be able to win. But obviously there's 4 more other riders that want to win as well. And when will that sprint start? When will the attack start? I'm thinking very early on.
I think they will. As I say, in 17 minutes time we will get 5 laps to go, or near. So just swinging to the back there in that blue jersey from Ribble Weltite, the 22-year-old Charles Page, sat 5th man. It's leading through now. For the Ineos Grenadiers is Ethan Hayter. Second wheel at the moment is a Charlie Tanfield, riding for Canyon DHB Sun God. And then third wheel, his brother in the white jersey of Quebec Next Hash, riding the World Tour level, is Harry Tanfield. They are 5 riders out in front at the moment, and slowly but surely the clock is ticking. And in about 25 minutes time we will know who's going to be crowned the new men's national circuit race champion. I mean, Adam, just describe a little bit about what it's like to pull on a national jersey as crit winner. You had a monstrously successful year the year you won. It's a really special feeling, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and I think the nice thing is with it is that you never really get to ride in, as a cyclist, you never really, apart from the track and the velodrome, you never really get to ride in a stadium on a road. But this is a little bit like a stadium. So there's a little bit of relevance into it that you've got people all around the course. You're always hearing cheering. We can hear the cowbells that are being rattled around there as well. So it's almost like being in a mini stadium. And when you start watching this, you can't help but almost invest in it a little bit by watching, seeing who's off the front. So it's a very nice place to be when you win this, because it's like a stadium.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier on that as we get towards the back end of this race, and riders start to get that kind of bundle of nerves building up in the stomach when you know that there's a possibility of kind of winning. That's when you get these adrenaline jumps. That's when the crowd really gets behind you. That's when you really feel the electricity in the atmosphere, the noise of the crowd. It's really, really quite special, isn't it?
It is indeed, yeah. And I think for these riders especially, that they're in a breakaway with 5 riders, so they've got 4 riders to beat if they want to win. And this is the part where you sort of play on your mind, how are we going to do that? How am I going to win? How am I going to do it? And the nerves build up more and more and more. And being in this group, you know the attributes of the other riders, that they're going to have to go long, so you're always on sort of tenterhooks going, when are they going to attack, when are they going to go? And it's just about looking after yourself and doing everything you can to your ability to get the best out of yourself, but ultimately being able to respond to other riders.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, when you look at the kind of the dynamics of this circuit, you've got Lewis Askey at the back there. We just saw there was 0 opportunities for anybody to actually attack on that particular straight there. I mean, there are only a few points on the circuit because of the amount of speed they're carrying, because of the line choice. There's not enough road, so there's probably only, I'd say, kind of half the distance on this circuit. And you've got to be in the right kind of place to actually launch an effective attack as well. So you've really got to be smart. You've really got to pick your point, and maybe even think about where you are on the line, how much you drop off to when to attack with the left or the right. There's going to be a proper thought process here. It's not going to be necessarily on instinct unless somebody really drops the ball.
Yeah, I think Tanfield, we're going to see Tanfield attack down this straight and just go into that second to last corner at the bottom of this downhill as quick as he possibly can.
Just take it quick, yeah, and open up. Yeah,
just open that gap up as much as he can with seating, with a big seated acceleration and a big gear. If he gets into those twists and chicanes first, it will be hard to get around him. He's a big rider. He's not easy to get past. So I think that's what we'll see, but you can just see it is just slightly uphill enough and hard enough for other riders to be able to respond to that. The likes of Hayter, who will lose distance in the corner inevitably.
Well, that particular section there, that long section where we've seen the riders really, really lay down the power, and it gently, gently rises as well. That's probably the only opportunity to really kind of launch a clean attack, as it were. But again, it's going to be very interesting. Which rider's going to launch first? Are 1 or 2 of these riders going to be happy just to leave it for a sprint? But I tell you what, I wouldn't want a group sprint coming into that final corner. We saw what happened for the sprint for the silver medal in the women's race, just carrying too much pace, clipped the barriers on the left-hand side. You're going to want to come into that first corner, or the first corner of the chicane in first place, and there's just no room to come round, is there?
No, definitely not. I think, looking at the circuit, I think leading up till the finish, if you can put in a hard dig out of that bottom corner, really try and stretch the group out through the finish, and then again, if you can do it again all the way up till the feed zone until they start to drop down again, that's when I think they're going to be in the best place to do so. It's the longest point, which is the hardest bit, right before the finish, all the way through it, and another 400 metres after it. If you can do that and then able to back it up after an attack, that's when you're going to be in with the best chance. But either that or you take big risks on corners and hope you get round and the other guys don't.
Exactly. Well, that was Ollie Wood from Canyon at DHB Sungod, just keeping that group moving nice and quick as again we head up. We've got to the lowest point of the circuit there, and this is where the road just gradually drags up. Ethan Hayter there focused, breathing, just rolling that gear. Looks like he's actually maybe just knocked it off just a little bit there. Oh, look at the site there of this beautiful cathedral here in Lincoln, built in 1185 in that Gothic style, puncturing this night sky, 83 metres, towering above what is essentially, it's an arena, isn't it? It's a theatre.
Yeah, it definitely is indeed. And just noticing as they're coming through the finish there, those first couple of laps when they went through at the start of the race, they were freewheeling around those corners through the finish. Now they're pedalling around them, so the pace has dropped off significantly. Even that corner there, pedalling around it again. So these riders have still got a lot more speed around these corners to gain yet.
Yeah, 11 minutes now until the hour is up. The race started at 7:30. It will be finishing probably at around 8:40 or 8:37, give or take. The riders definitely will be starting to think about how they can win this title. There's only 5 riders out in front, 3 medals on offer but importantly, only one National Championships jersey. 10 on offer over the last few days. We haven't had one because of the absence of the championships due to reasons we all know very, very well indeed. So we will have a new champion, and it won't be Joe Walker. Joe Walker, of course, emulating his father. Joe Walker, the champion from last year, and his father actually won. Chris Walker, a lovely chap, back in 1998 and 1999. And then Adam, sitting just to my right, won his title back in 2014.
You see Hayter just really sitting off the back there, getting
Says
Askey to do it. I think he's planning an attack. He's got to be. If he's laying off a little bit, maybe through after the finish there, as it drags up on the cobbles, maybe he'll try something, just laying off ever so slightly, letting that gap go a little bit, trying to get a little bit more recovery maybe.
Well, this is what the two brothers are
pushing on.
Yeah, Tanfield is pushing on a little bit with his brother right on his wheel there. Askey kind of fighting to get back on the wheel there. That was very interesting. He's missed a turn in the process. So Charlie Tanfield just dropping back, having a little look at the situation, dropping back into fifth position now. But that was quite an interesting move by Hayter, perhaps waiting just to see. And also, if you do drop back a little bit, you get a better look at the kind of situation, don't you? But it looks like a couple of riders are potentially winding up for something. Askey looking around to make sure that Tanfield wasn't a danger as well. This is starting to get a little bit cat and mouse, and we've still got around 15 minutes of racing.
Yeah, it is doing indeed. I think that just that missing that turn there from Hayter, that Askey sort of looked and went, oh, you're doing something, you're up to something, you're going to attack, and Hayter's just gone straight to the front, trying to neutralise things a little bit, try and calm everyone down. Let's start again. Let's just start rotating, and he will eventually try something. If he's acting like that, if he's laying off the back, missing turns a little bit, he has to have it in his head that he's going to try something.
Well, just a reminder, if you're just joining us, we are in Lincoln, in England, in the beautiful city centre here. We are racing around the outskirts of Lincoln Castle, and at stake is the Men's National Circuit Race Championships. There is Lincoln Cathedral. It's a wonderful setting. We've had a brilliant national championships so far. These five riders have carved out a pretty decent lead of around 3/4 of a minute and counting. And the composition of this group out in front is Ethan Hayter for the Innis Grenadiers, just in the back in the navy blue with the red stripe, 23 years of age and a silver medalist at this year's Olympic Games on the track. Charlie Tanfield is there in blue, 24 years of age, riding for Canyon DHB Sungov. Also in the mix in white is Harry Tanfield as we look at one of the chase groups behind. And they're probably around 30-40 seconds behind. Also in the mix, Charles Page from Ribble Weltite. Here's the rider on the front at the moment in that blue kit with the red helmet. And rounding out our five riders out in front, battling it out for that British Champions jersey, Lewis Askey of the Groupama FDJ under-23 squad at a very young 20 years of age. And soon we will see the lap board with 5 laps to go. We've got about 8 minutes of racing, so probably, Adam, about 3-4 laps before we get 5 to go.
Yeah, not long at all. And this is the downhill, the last corner, the fastest one on the circuit before that finish there. So, as you said, Matt, about 3 or 4 laps of racing, maybe 5, who knows, depending on how quickly go if the attack before those last lap starts. Is one of the riders is just getting onto that motorbike just to regain a little bit of contact. Very cheeky.
It was quite cheeky, just using the slipstream. Again, you might as well get the advantage where you can, but that rider isn't in the reckoning. I think he may be removed, especially given once we head into the last 5 laps. I think some riders, if they're riding for places, are allowed to keep riding, but generally, if my last glance at the rule book is that in the last 5 laps, the groups behind will then sprint for their placing. But that's number 44, that is Cameron Orr of Team Inspired. And one of his teammates sadly crashed earlier on in the race. Then meanwhile, back in front, it is Askey taking that top corner just past the feed zone for the road race. Still over on the cobbles, back onto the tarmac, and they're definitely knocking things back a little bit here, definitely keeping something a little bit under the hood. Not just to make sure they've got something to launch an attack of their own, but more, Adam, to make sure they are in a position to respond to the other attacks as well.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it, now that the tactics are starting to come into play. They know that attacks are going to start coming, or maybe they won't. We just never know, which I think if it does, then it's going to play into Page's hands a little bit more than the rest of them. Yeah. But I say that, you know, you've got Tanfield, both brothers who are very similar. They can accelerate. We've seen, I'd say Charlie is probably one of the quickest through this last corner here. So if he accelerates through that, you're going to have great legs to get around him going into that last corner. But it's got to start happening soon. The attacks have got to start coming in. The longer it takes, I think it just shows that they're all quite comfortable with it coming into a sprint, knowing each other's abilities of cornering, speed,
and that's
sprint.
even more intriguing, in fact, isn't it? When you've got riders that, yeah, okay, we'll leave this for a sprint. It's going to leave that last lap is going to be very, very hairy indeed, and could come down to the rider with the most guile and the most confidence, and just not so much top end at him, but the ability to corner at pace. That final left-hander, which still with 300 metres to go, roughly 250 metres to go, could be the crucial one, especially if somebody opens up a couple of lengths.
Yep, definitely indeed. And I think they will open up lengths. It's all going to be down into that last corner. And I think, as we've said at the start of this, Hayter doesn't want to crash. He's got bigger things, I think it's fair to say, to try and win that road race on Sunday. So for him, he doesn't want to take the massive risk. You can see him laying off the back a little bit, just ever so slightly, maybe thinking about attacking. And I think if he wants to win, he doesn't have to do it solo. He's very, very quick indeed, but minimal risk for him. Minimal risk, maximum satisfaction. Attacking is probably the best thing.
Exactly, and attacking in a place that's going to suit his attributes, and on a straight section, or just, if he can, on the cobbled section, just through where you think it might kind of suit him, where it actually is the kind of hardest physically. That is definitely the hardest part. I mean, and the cobbles don't look bad there, but they are very, very rough indeed for about around 100 metres, and it's more, riding on cobbles that rough has the sensation, although there's a different weight distribution on the bike, it has the sensation of a similar power spike to actually climbing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does indeed, and I think it really, you do have to think about that a little bit, the way you're positioned on the cobbles, the way you're going to put down the power if you're a rider that needs to get out the saddle to accelerate. And looking at the riders within that, we've seen Askey is always out the saddle on the cobbles, Hayter's rarely out the saddle, as are the two Tanfield brothers. So I think the dark one in here is Page for me.
Yeah, definitely. He's been looking good. He hasn't ever looked in trouble a lot. He's certainly wearing a bit of a mask in terms of his facial expression as we look a little bit further down the road. This, I believe, is still Chase Group number one. And they're certainly, well, I don't think they're going to be lapped now, actually. I think the pace has dropped off a little bit. Had this lead group of 5 continued with that real electric pace that we saw early on, they would have lapped them. But there's no need to. They just need to keep enough of a gap between them and this group behind. And they're kind of almost like matching each other now for speed.
Yeah, I think you can see the riders in there. They're not strung out really. They're just sort of cruising around and thinking about like 6th place rather than getting lapped. 6th place is still up for grabs, and it's still a very respectable result. So thinking about that, and the best way to do that, obviously, it's a race within 2 races.
Yeah, totally. Well, this is getting very nervous now. Clearly, the longer it goes without an attack, the more, for me, intriguing this is. But who will be the rider that tries to draw first blood? Will it be Lewis Askey in the white jersey? Will it be Charlie Tanfield in the blue? Will it be Ethan Hayter trying to go early to maybe mitigate any risk that he has to take later on to follow the likes of Harry Tanfield because of his cornering prowess? Or will it be your dark horse, and I think mine, Harry Page of Ribble Weldtite, 22 years of age now, just sat at the back of that group in position number 4 as we head through again. Now it's 27 minutes past 8. I think next time through, if my calculations are correct, they will show the 5 laps to go board, or thereabouts anyway. As Askey rolls through, everybody sat down, and having ridden these cobbles on numerous occasions, as soon as you get out the saddle, the back wheels everywhere, regardless of your tyre pressure. The best way to get the power through, although sometimes it doesn't feel right, is just to sit down across that section.
Yeah, it definitely is indeed. And I think, looking at these riders, they might just be waiting for that 5 laps to go, so they get a sign of how far it is to go. So, it is very difficult riding around here to look
without knowing. It's like a mystery race, isn't it?
Yeah. You've got your time, which you know roughly where you're at, give or take, but not easy to look down and see your computer even when it's this dark as well. Unless they've got the auto light up.
Yeah, and it's like in a road race when you've got a lot, the corners come up every 15, 20 seconds, and then you're on the brakes, or you're banking things over. And also in these sorts of conditions with that low light, the change of road surface as well, the last thing you want to be doing for more than a fraction of a second is actually looking at your head unit. In fact, in a race like this, I mean, I know a lot of riders will want to look back at the data, but you certainly wouldn't be riding to power on a circuit like this. It's all about riding on feel and skill, isn't it? I mean, you forget that riding at this level, all of these riders in front, fine physiological specimens, but there's a really high skill set of riding crits at this level.
Yeah, there definitely is indeed, and you can never really ride, unless you're out front, a crit on power. And I think if you are out the front, you'll generally get a feel for not just I'll ride at 400 watts all the way round. It's generally right, I'll ride at 500 here, and then I won't ride at,
and then 100 watts or nothing.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
It's just like spikes, isn't it?
Exactly that. So it's yeah, it's very. You just learn throughout the process of this whole race where to put the power down, where not. Just trying to look then, Matt. I heard your sort of head tilt, because obviously you can hear better when you tilt your head.
Yeah,
so you've got 5 laps to go.
I'm very good at tilting my head so the sound goes into my ears a little bit better. Yeah, using kind of rudimentary physics. No, I think it might be next time through, because we haven't seen the 5 laps to go. Haven't quite heard it yet. It is still 2029, so I think it'll be next time through, according to my maths, that we do see that 5 laps to go board as Lewis Askey takes to the front. I do love the kind of, I know it sometimes can be a bit of a nightmare for the riders, the different kind of lights, although they've actually done a very good job. We've got a mix of street lights, with that amber kind of colour, and also there are plenty of extra floodlights. So actually the course is pretty well lit, and the riders do get used to it, but it really adds a unique atmosphere to the proceedings. I really do love it.
It definitely does indeed. It makes it feel a little bit more theatrical.
It does.
A little bit more drama to it. They're going into the dark, they're coming out of the dark, they're into the light.
Exactly. Earlier on we were watching some of the early pictures. We couldn't recognise anybody, and then we soon worked out it's because they had jackets on.
Yeah.
So anyway, the lighting's been very good, so well done to the race organisers for pulling this together, because it's a big logistical feat as well, to pull in the championships that cuts across all the disciplines: time trials, circuit racing, and of course the road races. So let's have a little look. Well, there we go. Not too sure. Didn't say 5 laps to go there, so maybe next time through.
Maybe
so
next time through.
4 laps to go we're seeing here.
Right,
well, okay, we didn't hear that last time, so thank you very much to our producers to stick that sticker on. Otherwise, me and Dan, I always say Dan, don't I? Me and Adam would have been calling the lap to go, or would have been late.
Yeah, we would have been. Why are they sprinting so soon? No, but it is going to be interesting now. 4 laps to go. They've only got about 6 minutes racing left. So
yes.
Each of these riders with a little bit of a track background, apart from Page there, I believe, and Askey, they'll know that effort they can do. They'll know the numbers they can do, and they know what they can put down, the power, which they'll have to do. But as we spoke about, Matt, everyone seems quite happy to let this go into a sprint. And I think for the likes of Tanfield, as we spoke about, big risk into that bottom corner, the fast one. Hayter, I think for him, if he was to win, he'd have to go down into here, this last corner, as fast as he possibly could, and then brake so everyone got behind him. So I just don't think he's quick enough through that last corner to regain that gap that he loses.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. You could just see Page there, really. I mean, actually slightly overlapped Tanfield on that corner, just on the outside, so perfectly safe, but happy to carry, maybe feathered the brakes a little bit. So Page clearly cornering really well. But of course, what I'd imagine for Hayter to try and win this, I think what he would like is the pace actually slowed a bit and jumped, because he's got that real punch. But to a rider of extreme, just trying to pick the differences between these riders as we hit 3 laps to go now. I think Tanfield will want to keep the pace high and just like and kind of go long rather than like a real quick acceleration. I think that's what will mark my 2 favourites out, Tanfield and Hayter, who's now missed a turn and dropped to the back.
Yeah, missed another turn again there. Just let that gap grow a bit. Tanfield almost forced him to come through, saying no.
Good move that by Tanfield, though. Yeah, he nearly took him out of the back. We've seen that before in the Tour of Britain recently.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Really play out a few times. So good bit of riding there. We saw Hayter just try and, I wouldn't say bully, but basically suggest that do you want to take that wheel. But Tanfield wise to it and ushered the Ineos Grenadiers rider back in. So you can almost feel the tension here, can't you? Page on the front. That's the penultimate left-hander heading back down to the lowest point on the circuit before that gentle rise up to the line. Next time through it will be 2 laps to go. Askey takes to the front. It's got the feel of like a scratch race now, hasn't it? You know, on the track almost, because it is, you know, it's almost like a city kind of velodrome, left-handed all the way through, similar to a track, of course. We've got the crowds.
You just think, though, surely there's 5 people within this group.
One attack.
Yeah, surely 1 will attack. Surely 2 will attack. Only 3 people get on the podium, so they're all obviously very confident. But you'd think there would be possibly an attack from them to try and at least try, if they're not confident in their ability with a sprint. Only 1 person can get through that corner first.
Yep, and we've seen that before. So Tanfield, and it is Charlie Tanfield who takes them through with 2 laps to go. Just a reminder, This is the 5-man leading group. Ethan Hayter is there for the Ineos Grenadiers, just rolling through to the front in the dark jersey. In the second wheel, number 49 is Harry Tanfield of Quebec. Next hash, representing Groupama FD Sure, the under-23 team, is Lewis Askey, the youngest rider in at this breakaway. Also there, Charlie Tanfield, just at the back there, number 11 for Canyon DHB Sun God. Lap and a half to go, and they've really knocked up the pace here.
Tanfield going on the left, look.
Big move by Tanfield on the left-hand side. Askey responds straight away, skips around the corner, carries a lot of pace into that left-hander, and crucially, it was Hayter who was on the front, but Hayter accelerating, sat down, looks very composed indeed, and it looks like he's nearly put out this fire. Well, how confident did Hayter look there?
He has to do this, though. If he wants to come into this bottom corner in one of the first two places, he has to control this now. He has to keep this within touch. You can see the gap there. We can see how quick he is to accelerate, but that little gap that he has to close down, he has to do this now for the next lap, just to ensure Page starts to go, look.
Good move from Page, flanked, followed by Lewis Askey. Tanfield goes again, but I tell you what, Ethan Hayter is looking very good indeed. He's using that track craft as well. Remember, he is a silver medalist in the Omnium. 1 lap to go now. Page takes the bell. Just cruising, really carving that corner. Askey, the first rider out of the saddle on the left-hand side, attacks on the cobbles.
Yeah, it's getting interesting now. Hayter's all over it, not letting anything go, but Askey absolutely flat out now, trying to give it everything, trying to open that gap up. Let's not forget there's 15 or 10 seconds on each straight here, so it's very short amounts of time, so you can really put the power down.
Well, Askey's pretty basically putting in a finishing sprint here to try and open up the gap. Full out of the saddle, and the hesitator behind hand. Tanfield has been forced to go to the front. The rider in the black and white, we know how much pace he can carry into these corners, but so can Askey as well. Askey opens up a half a second lead. If that, this is the penultimate big corner. Over the speed bumps again, out of the saddle, stamping violently to try and accelerate as quick as he can, but it looks as if Tanfield is nearly going to bring him back, but the gap is still there.
The gap is still there indeed. Askey now, this is a big risk through this last corner. Hayter just on the wheel still. Hayter has to start his sprint from this bottom corner, all the way from the bottom to get around these two before that final bend.
We're coming into last 100 metres on the right-hand side. Tanfield goes in a huge gear coming into that final corner. He sits down, stamps on the pedals. I think he's got enough for a gap. Hayter comes through on the inside. Hayter on the inside, on the outside, shall I say, round the final corner. Hayter from the Ineos Grenadiers. What a masterclass from Hayter. Hayter makes title number 2 with utmost confidence and ease. That was a masterclass of sprinting and bicycle guidance round a corner. Absolutely amazing ride there by Ethan Hayter.
Yeah, he made that look incredibly easy, didn't he? Just waiting to pick his moment to come past Tanfield there. He just rolled at him, got moved to the side, waited, and then started again. And ultimately, we saw how easy he made it look, just tapping on the pedals a little bit, coming into the corner, leaving that gap, making sure he didn't crash, not taking any risks. And then as soon as he stamped on the pedals, that was it. No one could match him. We saw Tanfield probably for the first time this race get out the saddle, and as he did that, Hayter for one of the first times this race did the same thing and just went flying past him.
Out of all of the riders there, the kind of, he didn't visibly appear to be, he just kind of floated his way around that corner. I mean, to move it, and we've got the sprint here for 6th place coming through from the rest of the bunch. It looks as if it's going to be one of the riders from Canyon DHB who's going to put 2 riders in the top 10 for that squad. Great riding. Carries a lot of pace around that corner. So good riding. Also, a couple of the riders in the mix there from Team Inspired as they all take the checkered flag. But what can you say? I just didn't think there was enough road, but look at this. Tanfield just left enough space on the outside, but just look at the way he kind of cruised his bicycle around and was just feathering the brakes as he crossed the line. Yeah. I mean, he made that look easy, but it wasn't. That's such a difficult technical finale against riders with that sort of engine.
Yeah, I think what he did there is he just played it safe, didn't he? He was just not taking any too big a risk, just making sure he had that line himself and just sticking to it and not being sort of, I'm going to call it a la Philippe with the bike, not being sort of vigorous on it, just sticking to it like rails and just going through almost the motions with it, kind of
letting the bike almost do the work. Yeah. It was really something special to see. You know, there was I don't know if Tanfield put it in a huge gear when he started his acceleration, but just left that little bit of space on the outside, which this man Ethan Hayter managed to take. He looks pretty chuffed with that, but rode an absolute blinder today. That really was an exciting finale.
I think, Matt, we could see him win all 3, yeah. And I think that's maybe why he's done this, so he can possibly win all 3.
Well, that would, I mean, he's certainly on the road, isn't it? Well, we're going to look at this last lap again, and let's dissect this as forensically as we can. There is the belt. It's Page on the front, but this was the first attack we've seen.
Yeah, that was the first attack, and I think that was maybe a little bit of a mistake from Page. He opened up this whole box of worms almost, and Askey went straight over the top, and this is his commitment to the finish now. He started very early on, got that gap open, and this is the point just round here as you come past the feed. They've got onto Page's wheel there, Hayter, and this is the point here. Tanfield starts to accelerate around him, so you can see him doing that. Hayter's aware of it, moves onto his wheel, let him does the bulk of that work. Harry now is on the front, just slowly bringing it back. Hayter knows he will do all that work down into the downhill and from then on. So for all of these riders, especially Tanfield there, he's doing almost a 30-second sprint almost.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty difficult still to call this. Askey looked like he might have just had enough, but the way how powerfully smooth that Tanfield takes this corner opens up a little bit, actually opens up a couple of lengths actually on Hayter. And this is where looks like Tanfield had it, maybe it's an enormous gear on the right-hand side, but sprints in the centre of the road.
You can just see Hayter here now, sort of boxed in on the right, doesn't go on the left-hand side now, tries again on the right. Tanfield moves across and just manages to get through on that little bit, gets himself in line for that next corner, and then he's basically on rails now to the finish, and yeah, it just makes it look effortless.
The thing is, that could have been a dangerous move, but it didn't in any way hinder Harry Tanfield either. I mean, there was he just did it sublimely. Yeah. It was really something to watch, and that last half a lap in particular, where the way he let Tanfield go through and shut the gap down, that reminded me of a points race on the track. The way he rode that had a real track craft about it, as we just get confirmation of the top 10 here. So Ethan Hayter of the Ineos Grenadiers is in first. Harry Tanfield in second place for Team Quebec and Next House. And Lewis Askey takes the bronze medal for Équipe Cycliste Continentale Groupama FDJ. Charlie Tanfield, the second brother home for the Tanfield family there in fourth for Canyon DHB Sun God. In fifth place, the last of our five-man breakaway was Charles Page of Ribble Weltite. Then we have Matt Bostock of Canyon DHB Sun God in sixth. William Tidball of Team Inspired. Two riders from the Wales Cycling Academy with Joe Holt in 8th and Owain Roberts in 9th. And then rounding out our top 10, Isaac Mundy of Richardson's Trek DAS. So a breathless race. I mean, a wonderful one. I mean, it was just down to the 5 riders in the end, but it all came down to that last gap and who had the engine, but also who had that technical prowess, Adam.
Yeah, it definitely did indeed. And I think it's nice to see also, Matt, is that 3 World Tour. I know Askey is not quite World Tour, the team he's in, but he's going World Tour.
All but World Tour, isn't he, mate?
Yeah, so it's nice to see that these riders have come along, and nice when you look at the podium to say there's 3 pretty much World Tour teams on there. So I think it just shows that the race has got attributes for the other riders maybe in the future to come and do, because it means something. If these riders are getting on the podium, then why wouldn't you try and do it? So I think adding this race to this week of racing at the Nationals in Lincoln, it's hopefully going to carry on like that in the future, and more riders will compete these races.
No, definitely. I think, and the thing that we mustn't forget as well is, you know, the reason why we all ride bikes is it's fun, and crit racing is fun. It's thrilling, it's exciting, it's dynamic. It's easy for the spectators to watch. You know, communities can get involved as well. I mean, and we've talked about it a lot. You know, the heritage here, the love that Lincoln has for cycling. But quite often what we'll get off the back of these sorts of races are youth events as well, you know, and it's just a great thing to watch, and one of the most exciting disciplines, and it's a discipline that often we forget about, but it's good to see it back, and as you quite rightly said, Adam, you know, battled out by some of the bigger stars that we have in the sport and some of the stars of the future. Yeah. There he is, Askey, the youngest man in the break. He certainly had fun, and certainly that was a really good attempt at taking the win. Just by his body language, I mean, how much power was he putting through? He was determined to try and stay clear, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was an unbelievable effort, and I think once you committed to it, that is it. You have to commit to the finish, which he did. And it was a fantastic effort. You know, you never know what might happen behind a crash with the riders taking big risks to catch you in the corners. It all could have happened, but for this man, he'd never really put a foot out of place throughout the whole race. He was just cool, calm, collective, rode his own race. And just to add already to his amazing year, he's already amazing week, national time trial champion 2 days ago. Now this, national criterium champion. He's got one more to top it off, and then maybe cyclocross. Who knows, he might jump on the cyclocross bike in the winter.
He might as well. I mean, he's got those kind of skills, hasn't he? You know, have a word with Tom Pidcock, but he looked like he enjoyed that. He looked like he had fun. But when a rider makes things look easy when you know they're technically very challenging. That's the mark of an exceptionally gifted rider, isn't it? But he could have. That finish had the potential to go horribly wrong if a rider got it wrong and took a risk and took somebody out. I mean, because it was so. But he took a calculated risk, and there was no danger at all because he was in complete control, wasn't he?
Yeah, complete control throughout the whole race. And I think what's really nice to watch about Ethan is that if you're new to cycling and you're watching TV, you're looking, it's like, oh, he must be trying really hard because there's gaps being open all the time. He's letting the gap go a little bit. There's a bit more of a gap. And even myself, sometimes you question, if you're watching someone for the first time, you sort of say, is he suffering? Is he not? And that will play on the minds of the riders within the race. If we were just off the back a little bit, you think, oh, is he? Is he not? But that's just how Ethan rides, almost quite safely, but within his own limits.
It was a superb ride. Was his agent on the right-hand side? It's, hopefully we'll get a chat a little bit later, or in a few moments' time. But we've got some podium action on the second national champs jersey for Ethan Hayter in as many days. And could we see history being made? Because I tell you what, the way he's been riding at the moment, he's on a real crest of a wave. The form hasn't waned at all, but it's just the versatility of the events, you know. Second in the Tour of Britain, along with a stage win. 8th in the World Road Rate in the World TT Championships. You know, 11th in Gran Piemonte. Won the time trial yesterday over a pretty hilly course. And when you look back through his results, it's just been consistent from pretty much the opening race of the year when he was 5th and 3rd in the time trial in the Tour de Bessage back in February, and he's hardly missed a beat all the way through the year, has he?
Yeah, he's done brilliantly. And I think there's only more to come from him in the future. And I think, you know, when you look at Team Ineos and the riders that they invest in, Ethan Hayter along with Tom Pidcock, I think they are the next big investments for that team.
Yeah. They will be the riders where the team could be built around, basically. I mean, when you look at their potential, still very, very young, well, we just don't know what they're going to achieve.
The medals and jersey will be presented by Bob Howden, OBE, President of British Cycling.
So this is Bob Howden, the President of British Cycling.
In 3rd place, winner of the bronze medal,
so 3rd place, Lewis Askey of the Groupama squad, moving on to the highest level of the sport, and the first time we've really seen him do battle on home roads. And watch out for him as well on Sunday. Certainly rides well on the cobbles.
Harry
Tanfield of Quebec next hash. 2nd place for him. Good work by his brother in the breakaway. He did his best, but he could not quite match the masterful performance of the next man on the podium.
2021 British Cycling, a men's national circuit race champion, Ethan Hayter of Team Ineos.
Ethan Hayter, for the second time in a little over 24 hours, is the national champion again, and a big broad grin across his face. He certainly enjoyed that one. And I'd imagine Adam as well, as he's just about to pull on that beautiful jersey. You know what it likes to feel to be on the podium of the National Circuit Race Championships. It's a big, big moment. And although he's already enormously decorated, Olympic silver medalist as well, still going to be a special moment because, you know, on Sunday he could make history.
Yeah, I think he definitely can, and for me he's ultimately the favourite. I know there's not a lot of riders riding the Nationals, the likes of Pidcock, just because of their timings throughout the year and going into next year. So I think Hayter, you know, after Tour of Britain, the World Championships, he's obviously done everything right to put himself back in the best position he can to go in this event, and I don't think he's coming here to get second. He's not coming here to get third. He's here to win.
He's here to get a shiny new Pinarello next year, if he branded up in those British Champions colours. But for tonight and tomorrow, he can kick back, probably go for a nice cafe ride around these beautiful lanes in Lincolnshire and reflect on being the national champion for the second time. And to a degree, I guess, he's taking the pressure off on Sunday.
Or maybe added it.
Or added it. It's a bit of both, really. I mean, it's like, yeah, won 2 championships, didn't quite get the 3rd, but he'll be really hungry for that 3rd. You can just tell, can't you?
He's going to have everyone all over him like a rash. Everyone will not let him out of the sights. Well, they'll try not to. Swift exit from the podium there.
Yeah.
People trying to get him sick before Sunday's race. Great tactics already. Well,
let's have a little look back at the men's National Circuit Race Championships. held in this beautiful city of Lincoln. The 25th edition of this race started off very quick. In fact, the triple bronze medalist John Mould of Techers CC was the first rider to attack, but it was the relentless pace of the Canyon DHB Sun God team that really strung the field out in the opening laps, and the future champion Ethan Hayter happy to do his fair share of pacemaking, but the first rider to really attack clear with any measure of success was this man on your screen now, Charles Page. The 22-year-old from Ribble, well tight, attacked early, and it was eventually 4 riders were to join him. There was a crash, which I'd imagine actually, well, not imagine, it did actually split the field a little bit. A couple of riders came down in that one, and eventually Page was joined by Harry Tanfield, Charlie Tanfield on the front now from Quebec and Next Hash. Ethan Hayter just coming across late actually. He was the last rider to join our 5 riders out in front. And eventually we did have 5 riders. The lead topped out at about 55 seconds. And heading into the last couple of laps, there were several attacks. The first came from Charlie Tanfield in the blue there. And just coming in to the final lap, he was the rider in fact on the back struggling. And eventually coming into the last couple of 100 metres after a quick little shimmy and a big acceleration just at the right time, perfectly timed manoeuvre to take the title. It was Ethan Hayter to win his 2nd national title in as many days. So the rider from the Ineos Grenadiers adds to what has already been a quite spectacular season. And as Adam was talking about earlier on, he has got a very, very bright future indeed. And here's a reminder of the top 10 again. Ethan Hayter takes the title ahead of Team Quebec at Next Hash's Harry Tanfield. Lewis Askey taking the bronze medal. Then we have Tanfield, Page, Bostock, Tidball, Holt, Roberts and Mundy. We're going to have a bit of a chat, I believe, with a couple of our riders.
Lewis Askey, congratulations, getting on the podium tonight at the in the Circuit Championships, bronze medal around your neck. How was the race?
Yeah, honestly, we were quite lucky. There was that crash a couple of laps in, and it was going pretty hard then, so that split it up quite soon. And from that point on, we probably had the perfect number in a breakaway. It wasn't too many where everyone's going to start looking, and it wasn't too little where we were going to struggle to get round. So, yeah, the race kind of fell into our laps a little bit, and. Yeah, I was on the new bike today. It's my first time I've rode the new Lapierre with a 60 deeps, and I was so excited to race it. It's the 2nd time I've ridden that bike, and yeah, we had our World Tour camp first meetings last week. So I just got the new bike, and I was so excited to ride it.
Fantastic.
And yeah, so it was a perfect course to test it out.
Bronze medal and a new bike day as well.
New bike day, yeah.
Brilliant. Well,
amazing.
Congratulations to you, Lewis. Harry, step in. Harry Tanfield, silver medal here in the crit race. Was it the case, Harry, of the World Tour pros really showing them how it's done?
No, there was a good mixture of everyone had a fair stab. I mean, in the first 20 minutes, I think there was a lot of attacks, the Academy boys and Canyon boys, and I think that just the crash kind of split everything up when that happened. Obviously, it happened right at the front of the race. It was maybe like 5th or 6th wheel back, and I think from then, I mean, I looked around on the lap after the crash. I just heard something, and luckily I was in the top 3 at the time, so just kept riding. I was just with my brother at the front, so we just kept on riding and looked round, and there was like a big gap, so we just got on the front and went for it. Like
you're in different teams, but you are brothers, so you know how each other ride pretty well, I imagine. Was there a bit of a plan there between the two of you?
Not as such, no. We probably should have discussed something before the race, maybe, but yeah, it never really materialised or anything. It's quite, I don't know, I mean, a lot of the cars you're freewheeling as well, so if you do get a gap, it's very hard to stay away on the back of the circuit, going down the hill into that corner. And yeah, obviously there was a crash on it, and I think when someone crashed, the water from the water bottle was on the road as well, so yeah, I just didn't want to lose the front wheel on that, and I'm just glad my tyres stayed up as well. I put some new tyres on the other day and they were going down, so I overinflated them, and then I think they were spot on by the end. So
knew everything. Lewis is on a new bike, you're on new tyres. Well, congratulations, well done on getting the silver medal.
Yeah, it was close in the end, but I think the better man won, so I can't complain.
Well, Harry, it's very, very gentlemanly of you. Let's talk to him now. Ethan, step in. Congratulations. As someone shouted there, 2 in 2 because you're national time trial champion, now national crit champion as well. Really well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I was a bit unsure about this crit, with the slightly dodgy finish and in the pitch black as well, but the atmosphere was great and I enjoyed that a lot.
Have you had a chance to race at Lincoln before, or is this the first time?
I've raced Lincoln before, but this is completely different to the road race. Like, the only thing that's the same is this last finish, but normally you've gone up a hill, so it's a bit different. Yes.
Enjoyable, a great crowd as well, great atmosphere. Just very quickly talk about the tactics, because you were in a quality group there with some other World Tour pros as well as a couple of others. You seem to be keeping your nose out of the wind in quite a smart fashion.
Yeah, I started at the front and managed to keep myself in the top 5, top 10, and like, it wasn't quite splitting, but the pressure was really on early on, and then we started really pushing, and one guy slipped out. And I just about avoided him. I was behind it, I just about avoided him.
Yeah.
And like, I sprinted and I was pacing myself back to the group, and it took me a whole lap to get back, actually. And I got back and I looked back, and obviously someone had stopped riding behind with him. Once someone's riding in front and then someone looks at each other behind, the gap just blows up, and straight away then I knew that was the race over, really.
We saw you have a fantastic Tour of Britain. You obviously won the time trial jersey the other day, this jersey today. The final question has to be, are you going to get the hat-trick? Are you going to get the win on Sunday in the road race?
I'd like to, obviously. I think it's going to be really difficult with...
you have a bigger team, though, around you, perhaps?
There's only 3 of us.
Right.
On the start list, so it's not quite the full... like Canyon have 10 guys, and so do Ribble, I think. So they'll be throwing everything at it, and a lot of people will be watching me, I guess, now after the last 2 days and the Tour of Britain. So yeah, it's going to be very difficult. But
I think you're already a marked man. Ethan, congratulations. Fantastic few days for you, and hopefully it continues. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Look at that sprint again. Here we go. This is that final little chicane, and this is the moment that the championship was won. He made it look easy, Ethan Hayter. Struggled to get across after that crash, but in the end delivered in fine style across the line here in Lincoln. We've still got some spectacular racing still to come. So please do join us on Sunday for the Elite Men's and the Elite Women's Road Race. But from me and Adam Blythe, for now, in the centre of beautiful Lincoln, goodbye and see you on Sunday.
Au revoir.